Okay, welcome everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order for the Corporation and Township of Portland on October 18th, 2023. I'll begin with a roll call. Councilor Spoulos.
Present.
Councilor Bailey.
Present.
Councilor Hurst.
Present.
Councilor Goya.
Present.
Excellent. Now I will begin our moment of reflection. That concludes our moment of reflection. Ms. White Fox, your resolution for confirmation of the agenda, please.
The council approves the October 18th, 2023 agenda as circulated, and the council approves the addition to the agenda as follows. Consent item 6.1.4, questions received from council seeking additional information, and the corresponding responses provided by staff.
Excellent. How you moving for that? Councilor Spoulos, second by Councilor Hurst. Any questions or comments? All in favor? That's carried. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest today? None. Excellent. Dive right into our delegation. I'll ask Mr. Mitchell to come up to the front, please. What I would do is maybe, I'm not sure if Councilor Hurst is familiar with yourself or not, maybe just do a quick introduction and for the members of the gallery.
Sure, I'd be happy to, and I apologize for having back to you, but my name is Kevin Mitchell. I'm the Director of Property Planning and Approvals for CRH Canada, or Dufferin Aggregates. I've been in the aggregate industry since 1989. I was with TCG, which is now part of the CDM assets, but was familiar with every operations in the area since that time. And that's a little bit of my background.
Okay, thank you. All right, go ahead.
Well, good morning, Mayor Sealy, members of council, and those in attendance. The purpose for my presentation today is to request an extension to the haul agreement that we have with the township. In 1980, the previous owner of the Aberfoyle Pit number 2, which is on Victoria Road, entered into an agreement with the township, and it had restrictions on the haulage period. It restricts it twofold. One is from May the 1st until November the 15th. And then secondly, it's from 8 a.m. until 6 p.m. Monday to Friday. The request that we have today is similar to the ones we've had many other years in the past to council, is to extend the period and to extend the time, but we want to keep them separate. So the request to extend it is to December the 15th. The reason for that is when we finish for the year on production, we want to fill the surge pile up. And that's not that all production from this site is hauled over to our Brock Road facility, which we call Aberfoyle Pit 1. We fill that up in the fall with the bank material to be processed, because production starts in early March, and that's during half load and prior to when the May 1 start period is. So we process, shut down the plant, and then we want to fill the yard, and that's why we'd be requesting that extension, and same as other years. The other extension that we would like council to consider today is that we can start at 7 a.m. And what the reason for a 7 a.m. start, it's typical of the industry, but it's also gets a more full day for the truck drivers and the loader operator. But it also will limit the trucks on the road. So if you can add an hour in the morning, what that does is it lets us haul a little bit more every day without adding a full truck. So it's the same number of trucks. We typically run 8 to 12 trucks, depending on the day, the availability of the trucks and that sort of thing. But we're not proposing to have to increase the truck numbers. If we're not successful, we would have to look at that sort of thing. But so the two requests are, one is to extend till December the 15th, and then the second one is to potentially start at 7 a.m. I'm happy to answer any questions. I appreciate the opportunity to present to you.
The extension hours is only on the morning side. And what's the normal end time?
Right now it's at 6 p.m. and we're fine with that. If council was, we normally the hours of operation are tied to what the Ministry of Environment is, and that's 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. That's typical because that's when the hours shift under the NPC 300 guidelines. We understand that the public aren't necessarily, and council as well, aren't necessarily wanting to see an extension at night time. But, and so that's why we're staying focused and asking for set.
And, you know, with climate change, and you and I have spoken about this, ahead of the meeting, my concern is that we have more wet weather versus, you know, hard snow that gets plowed off and with the extension in, time, like month-wise, do you have any resources to, for lack of a better term, do a better job of cleaning the road, or to at least stay on top of this misty weather that allows, you know, the dirty mud to be tracked onto the road?
I've spoke to our team about that ahead of time before today to answer that question. Now, their response was that they've worked hard this year and we've had a wet year. So the weather in the summer that we had this year, well, hopefully is reflective of how they would continue to operate. Not every day is perfect, we get that. And we're trying to step that up and improve it, but we have a dedicated sweeper that would go over there as required. We'd also offer to meet, or at least have a phone call, an email or something with the appropriate person from the township to say, were we good last week? Is there a concern last week? We're not trying to create work, but what we're trying to do is open up that line of communication with the municipality. We normally don't hear there's a problem until long after there's a problem, or it's accumulative. And so my suggestion would be to be proactive on that. Again, we know people are busy and your staff don't want to be babysitting us, and they shouldn't have to. But we would offer that and make sure that it's swept and kept up. I look back in my records and we're not seeing any complaints on tracking. There might be a complaint on a stone on the road, and we've really strengthened our monitoring to make sure that that doesn't happen, making sure the trucks get out, the drivers get out, check the loads before they leave, that they're tarped and that sort of thing. I've been there myself a couple of times. We have our logistics teams watching that too. So we think we're ready and able to address your concern.
Well, that's good to hear. I was referencing more last year, through the summer. I agree with your statement, it was a wet year. But last fall when we approved this, it was a little more on my radar. I drive that road quite a bit. And it was something that I thought to myself I would bring back to this year, just assuming we would see it. I'm not trying to influence the council, I'm just for clarity, maybe save a bit of time. When you say start at 7 AM, that means the gate opens at 7 AM, the trucks go in, or are they coming in at your staff? You know, I don't, if your staff arrive early for whatever reason, they open the gate, does that mean the trucks are arriving at whatever time before 7 being loaded, and then it's like a shotgun start as soon as 7 o'clock hits, that's when they're allowed to pull at the gate? Because that's different than, you know, residents experiencing the truck coming past their house at 7 AM that pulls in, gets loaded, then leaves. So there's a bit of a difference there.
It's a very valid question, and it's very, very relevant. How it's a little different than shipping. So what happens in the morning when we're shipping from, say, the pit one on Brock Road, is the truckers get raced to get in line to be first loaded, because they're going off to their job to haul for the day, and if they can get another run in or whatever, so they'll show up 15 minutes before you do, and then I come in 15 minutes before the next guy. This year, we'd be very happy to open the gate at 7 and make it very clear. All of these truck drivers are under the governance of one person at Dufferin. They can make it very clear. The gate is not opened until 7, and then that's when you can arrive. So don't come early, and if you do, you will not be filled up that day.
All right, I'll open up to council for their. I suppose.
Notification to residents, I think we continuously asked you previously notify the residents, we'll do that again as well.
We would propose to do anybody that abuts the property, as well as those that are on Victoria Road from the pit entrance up to Wellington Road 34 and along Wellington Road 34 over to Brock Road.
Next question, in terms of reducing the amount of mud on the road, have you thought of putting in 4-inch stone at the start of your driveway to try to shake it off like a rumble strip?
We have a long paved driveway, and we talked about this internally on how we can get it shaken off earlier, and we've actually put the clear stone behind that. And I think that's part of the success that they've had this summer with the wet summer, to do exactly what you're suggesting.
Okay, just last question, sort of tangential. You mentioned part of Dufferin, and you mentioned a separate organization, TCG, I think.
That's where I used to work.
Oh, I see.
That's back in that was my history, was I started at
Oh, okay,
THG back in
so Dufferin sort of wholly owned company, or sorry,
CRH. So Dufferin Aggregates is the business unit, and that's what we operate on in Ontario and have since the fifties, I believe it is. The parent company is CRH Canada Group Inc., which is an Irish company based in Ireland.
Okay, fair enough. That's all I have.
Okay, Council Bailey?
Thank you. Just a follow-up question on the sweeper. Is there a dedicated sweeper on site going out as requested or going out like on their own monitoring?
So the way we operate the site is there's a person in the loader. And then there's a person, if there's a drag line operating there, and then the truck drivers. And our foreman and or the management team above that go over from time to time throughout the day. And it's part of the routine is it's Wednesday, it's Friday, sweep. And that's built into their schedule. And if it's a bad day, our people are now monitoring and have been more so since the mayor had spoken to me about, we could do a little bit better last year. Where they'll monitor it on an hourly basis or whenever they're over there, if it's 2 hours or something, and then we'll sweep it as we do.
Okay, so a bit of both. So sort of backing on to that, is there a complaint process in place? Say a resident comes driving along and thinks, whoa, it's super muddy today, whatever. Is there a?
We would put the contact information in the letter.
Okay.
And then if the council's agreeable, A, to the extension and B, to move forward with this. We'd be happy to talk with staff or whoever on a touch base, whether even it's an email to say, we didn't hear anything this week, but are you hearing something? Because we don't always get that correspondence until it's too late and people are really upset. So if we're happy to be proactive on that correspondence side too.
Okay, some sort of a process we can be following. Yeah, I just wrote down, March is half load, so I'm understanding from March to May is when you can't be trucking, but you could be processing at pit 1.
Correct.
Is that the idea? So in order to allow that 2 months of processing, you would like the month extension to get all the product there to do that. So that does make sense to me, and I appreciate the half load on our roads. I did have a question. I mean, I drive through there a lot as well along that route. And I've noticed and I don't know, you can help educate me on the different size of trucks. So when there's a very large truck and it stopped at the red light trying to turn left, usually one truck gets through and every other car waiting behind has to wait until the next light cycle in order to get through. And then same thing while accelerating on 34, it's taking a long time for these big heavy trucks to accelerate. So cars are wanting to pass, which is not creating a very safe environment. Is there a way to use smaller trucks that aren't as slow to accelerate, but could still satisfy getting your product over to pit 1?
So it's more desirable to use the larger truck because it's fewer trucks. And obviously there's a payment on weight in the truck and that sort of thing. So there's a minor financial part of it, but it's kind of a double-edged sword. Smaller trucks would mean more. And as far as the speed in that, I never was a truck driver. Totally hear what you're saying. I'm not sure if it would be, is it that noticeable? I'm gonna watch now that you've raised that between a triaxle, which is the smaller load, or the trailer and the larger one. Definitely there is, but I'm not sure how much the difference would
Make a
be.
bit of a difference.
Right,
Yeah.
to say we're gonna double up the trucks, because if they're taking half, is that worse? Because they're all gonna be slow now.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Just an observation I had. Well, that's a big truck taking a long time to accelerate. I wonder if it was a smaller truck, if it would then keep up with traffic a little bit better.
Yeah.
But just curious how that works. Okay. I think I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.
Councilor Hurst?
Yeah, thanks. And some of my questions would be more just historical context. So forgive me having not been at this table that long, but I'm curious. In the past, Mr. Mitchell, you've said this requirement has been in place since the 80s. Have there previously been exemptions or amendments to that as you've requested? Or this is the first time I've seen it in the briefing notes, so I'm just curious if you can share some historical context.
I think for the last 5 years, we have come every year and asked for the same thing. And, there was, so the original agreement was signed in, March of 1980. And then there was an amendment, and it was only approved above the water table. And then in 1992, it was approved to go below the water table, and the agreement was amended to allow that.
Right.
It didn't change much other than you can now go below the water table. There was it went to the OMB at that time. But, I think it's the last 5 years that we've been here to ask for the extension. This was just the same thing year over year.
Can I interject? Yeah, there was a period of time where operations had ceased as well, so that might have bookended that 5 years or.
That's a good point. We didn't, when the economy slowed down in plus or minus 2016, we closed down the Aberfoyle operation. So we didn't haul or we didn't process, and we were able to, because the market wasn't there. And then it really started back up again, and a little bit in 17, a little bit in 18, but really it got back to the normal capacity in 2019. So I did look back. I wasn't here personally last year because I was away, but I've been here, I think that 3 years since before that, so.
And maybe this is more for staff, had the request been granted both from a timing standpoint as well as I guess the 7 AM and the December 15th? Is my understanding is that it had been granted in the past. Is that correct?
I'm gonna say in the early years, we didn't ask for a 7 AM. So and let's say we asked, and let's make the assumption that was 19, 20, 21 and 22. I don't think in the first couple of years we asked about the 7 AM. If the approval to extend the season has been granted, we did talk about timing, but I don't recall if that was approved or not. We did make a shift at one point. I think it was approved once. But
I believe
we didn't maybe ask every year though.
One time, I believe I just let you answer, but I thought we did the morning, but we were hesitant to do the evening or something
That's
like that.
my recollection as well.
Okay, and that's good. Just it helps me from a historical standpoint. Has this been granted in the past versus the first time? I guess the second question I had is, and I think some of it's alluded to just the mud management on the road, but has there been other community concerns expressed over the course of the last number of years where exemptions had been requested from the community? And what were those, and what was done to address any of those concerns addressed?
So as far as tracking on the road, never really much comment from the public on that. Recently, though, we have had, the company applied for a tonnage increase at this location, and we're working through that public consultation period. When we sent that notice out, and it was managed by our planning consultant, we did get some feedback from some of the neighbors that there are some stones on the road from time to time. And that's just a reason. And so to my point on keeping the lines of communication open, we don't always hear about an issue until we ask for something. And I would like to be more proactive and have an ongoing engagement somehow. The mayor does reach out from time to time to tell me, you can do a better job or whatever. And we're appreciative of the feedback, because I know if I live there, I would want my concern to be known all the time rather than we're just coming here asking for something.
Oh, that's fair. So, any concerns around noise with the expanded hours of operation to 7 AM at all, or had that been a concern raised in the past?
Not that I'm aware of, or can recall. We have had people comment about that's when children are getting on a school bus and that earlier hour, but we have trucks on the road at other locations at that time, and like to think that they're careful regardless of whether they're school children or not. I mean, more reasons to be careful, but.
Okay, I think those are my main questions, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for coming. I do have a question that's more just maybe my own curiosity. I know that the request is for an extension for the haulage, because there's restrictions in the agreement with the township. I am just wondering, is there also restrictions in place on the times and months where extraction is permitted to take place, or are you able to do that all year?
It's our understanding that it's just on the haulage, and that's why we come and ask for the haulage all the time.
You did talk about, you've touched on this a couple of times about sort of the open lines of communication and the complaint protocol and keeping on top of, if the road's dirty and you're getting complaints, which is great. I think that's a good approach. Is there also a sort of a complaint protocol in place in terms of, I seem to remember there was a neighbor who was concerned about water levels in their pond, different, those kinds of concerns. Is there a complaint protocol in place for those things as well?
Internally, when we get a phone call from the public, we try to get the public to call our site people. Some people have my name because they've been around for a long time, but most of the time, the neighbors either, they might tell of the consultant they're doing water level measurement because they're on their property. This one is the one I'm speaking of there. Otherwise, they usually call our people. And once we get a complaint internally, there's a document that's filled out and it goes up through the organization so that it doesn't just stop at the site. It comes over to the compliance people where I work out of. It also goes up to the general manager. So it's known internally.
Okay.
And then we report that annually to Ireland so that our parent company knows how many complaints are there. And that's published in our sustainability report on number of complaints and that sort of thing. But once we get a complaint, we try to engage directly with the public. Not always do we get it through the public. Sometimes it might be the ministry. So the water complaints, they came to us directly, but they also came to us kind of sideways, either through to the township. And then we dealt with Mr. Harden on that, your consultant. I have met with some neighbors recently, the owners of the CBM, former CBM pit, Mr. Roberts, who spoke at council last year. I met with him and his partner about 2 weeks ago to talk about water and that sort of thing. So any complaint that we get gets addressed almost on a complete basis, but we do have the internal processes that I described.
And then do you follow up, afterwards?
If
This is what we're
if
doing.
if the public want us to, yes, we do.
Okay. Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
So one thing I would, like to be a condition of the, extension of the hours is that, if there's any trucks parking on Victoria Road, that would result in a revocation of the permissions.
Okay.
It only ever happened once, but I know it's, and I mean, I guess I should say the possibility of it being revoked. Because, I'm not in the mindset that the first infraction should be held, to the ultimate degree, but I want that as part of the condition. That way it'll, it's incentive for you guys to harp on those guys. Yeah, also whoever drives the trucks. I think we should contact the county to see if we can, get an advanced left turn or, the timing of that light changed. So that way we could get the truck, maybe 1 or 2 trucks through to just improve flow. I also think that, we should, if you're gonna, well, I'll back up. We've been saying it for a few years, if there's 5 years left to get to the setback of aggregate. You don't have a crystal ball, but where are we at with that, pit? Like how many years are left in resources there?
So the current tonnage limit at that site is 1 million tons per year.
Yeah.
And we certainly would fall in that 5-year umbrella, less than 5 years.
So, without disclosing, sensitive, business information, I don't know if you can answer this through the amount you paid Torque, but, how come you're not able, or like, how much tonnage did you pull out of that site last year? And are you getting close to your limit? Like, why the extension? Why are you not able to meet your 1 million tons in the window that you have now?
Okay, I wanna unpackage that question. So as far as production, we're very, very careful on that because of competition issues and that sort of thing. We're very close to the 1 million tons per year, but we never get that close.
Okay.
Now, the feed in that site, so the material itself, it's like, the analogy is like when you're baking, we need the right kind of sand. We need the right number of stone, because when you put it in the plant, the sand part of the plant runs at 50% and the stone part does. And so we want that mix to be there. So the plant's efficient. We're not just running it empty. And the other part of it is that we've got the right gradation of sand. The bank material above the water table, which is limited there because a lot have been taken out historically in the past, it has a little bit of dirt in it. It's finer. And that fills that part of the gradation curve. So when you buy ready mix concrete, it has to have the right amount of fine material in it so that when you trowel it, it has the right finish. When you go below the water table, Mother Nature has washed a lot of that out. So we have to add that in. So we sprinkle in a load, maybe every 5 or 6 loads of material from Aberfoyle Pit 2 with a load of fine sand from somewhere else. We blend that at the plant and to get that right so that when we meet the MTO specifications. So the above and the below is mixed up. And how we blend it all together. So depending on if we're taking more out of the below, which we have to because there's not much left above, we would take more tonnage out and get a little closer to the million. If we're taking a little bit more out of the above, we can mix it up, and that would be the most that we would take out. But if we're below, would be the lower amount. So it's a bit of a blend. And then we are cyclic with what's happening with the economy. We've really seen a big slowdown happen in the last 3 months. But the forecast is not great from our perspective. So we ebb and flow a little bit. A lot of this product is going only to concrete or asphalt. We're not making road-based material. We're taking it to the highest product that we possibly can to maximize the utilization of that high-quality resource. And so if the ready-mix world, and it's going into the GTA because they don't have anywhere closest, if the high rises are slowing down, so does our ready-mix sales, which slows down our aggregate sales a little bit. So we bump up and down a little bit, like when we shut down, it was flat out, it was very quiet, but so that changes how long the life is a little bit. Best cases, we would be gone probably 4 years. There might be a bit of scratching around at the end, so their operations might be there, but it wouldn't be a full out in that 5th year, but that's kind of the timeline that we're looking at.
So would there be value in revisiting the agreement? Your time is valuable, instead of coming to council every year and we're hashing this out that, so we put, I don't know if it's a condition, but on this approval that Dufferin and works with township staff to review the hauling agreement, and as part of that, I think there might be some insurance of compliance. That's a big one for us right now. You're probably aware of some of the compliance issues of other operators we've had, whether they're proven or not as of yet. So that's a component of, an agreement, is that we ensure that, and that's an easy one, we do the site plan will be, So I think that should be a part of it. If you got 4 years left, depending on the economy, could end up being 10, who knows? So a review of a 1994 agreement is probably in order. But it would be pretty holistic. I've read your site notes after your site plan, once you applied for the tonnage extension, and one of the notes in there says that that probably wasn't you when you owned the pit, but it said that the truck shall stop before entering Victoria Road. And that's not always the case, and I believe they put that in there due to the hill to the south. So whether we really take that to task or not, that's something staff can take back. There's a few things in there, but especially if the extent the pit's gonna last longer, I don't know what the setback, what the plans are for that, but if it's gonna be 5-10 years, a left-hand turn lane at Victoria Road or some improvements to that intersection. Also, you spoke of a sweeper, and I'm not certain, but I feel council thinks of a street sweeper. But I think what you guys have is a broom on the front, like a round broom on the front of a loader.
It would be on a small IT type of loader. That's typically what you use, and if we need to, we get the vac truck in. But most of the time, it's the broom that's on there to be utilized with our own piece of equipment. Yeah.
And driving through there, the road doesn't seem to have much of ditches. I don't know if they were never there, or just through, I'm not trying to blame you, I don't know.
No, I'm going to guess, and we see this a lot. You're in a sand and gravel deposit, so water's not an issue. It gets to the side of the road and it disappears. So they probably, when those roads were built, they didn't need a ditch because there's never going to be any water in it. It's going to infiltrate other than that freezing period in the winter time.
So what I'm thinking is washing the road with a water truck versus just spreading mud around with a broom. kind
Well,
of
the
thing,
time
but-
of year we're into, we get worried about putting water on the
Yeah.
road. That's the one thing, but to your question on would we open up the agreement and take a look at it? I think if nothing else, it would at least facilitate some communication back and forth with the township on that site, and there might be some meaningful dialogue out of that, but there may be some things to tweak, and if we're gonna be there to extend it, so we'd be totally open-minded about that.
So I'm gonna ask council to discuss, the condition of opening up the agreement, and if they wanna make it a hard approval this year, and we need an agreement, or just send you and staff away to just discuss it. I'd like to discuss this left-hand turn arrow thing, now whether we send a joint letter from Dufferin and the township to say, hey, we both want this. I think that would. I'm not a stoplight guy, so I don't know what's involved to upgrade a stoplight from just a normal green to an advanced green. It could just be some programming. It could be, tens of thousands of dollars, no idea, but I think it's worth investigating. And again, parking on the road, we gotta make sure that doesn't happen, so.
Sure, with respect to, reopening the agreement. If we're gonna be going through this for the, 2 million tons, would that be the right time to reopen it?
Well, that may take a longer time than, if you had to guess, Kevin, for that to come to fruition.
I gotta say, by the time we get through back, we have to come back to you and engage with you. We did meet with the clerk and the CAO back some time ago, but we haven't had a lot of conversation. We're kind of going through that MNRF process right now, which then needs to circle back and talk to the public and the township as well. I think best case, we're looking at mid next year. All of those things take time to get that. If the tonnage increase, whether it's a favorable or not favorable decision, I think it's gonna be that long to get to that.
So either way, those things could run parallel, because with the tonnage increase, we're probably going to have the same requests as.
Well, I'm okay going, just trying to get, these guys through the next 5 years, just having this happen once type of thing, rather than coming back every year and us dealing with this. We spend 40 minutes on this, 35 minutes, we should say.
Well, it gives us an opportunity to get some wins.
Yeah, exactly, but
to be
it's
honest.
also the opportunity that if it does become an issue, then certainly staff will flag it to us.
Yep.
Okay, with respect to the light, I agree with that, signal light, I don't know, the process, joint letter, or perhaps Dufferin write to us and we forward it to county council, whatever works best will have the best impact.
Yeah, I'm not sure what would be best, but I mean, I would like a joint submission. I think that would work well if you could have yourself or whoever pen a letter. We've heard from some councilors here that the traffic back up at Victoria Road heading north to signal lighting trucks, just word it well, better than what I'm saying right now. And then council can receive it.
Yep.
And then, as long as you're comfortable with it, and maybe you can have that back for us in 3 weeks.
Yes.
And then that might actually provide you some efficiencies too, which.
And you mentioned one other thing in there, was the, trucks parked on the side of the road. Sure, I agree with you, we shouldn't have trucks parked on the side of the road rumbling and running all night long or all morning long while the residents are trying to, in some cases, sleep until.
Well, we're just trying to stop the queue, right? We don't want the trucks lining up there.
I'm okay, putting a condition in the agreement that, may be revoked, trucks parked on the side of the road.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to address that comment from Councillor Sipolis, we'd be happy to pay for the no parking signs to put up there too, to reinforce that too, if the township wanted to do that.
Upset people would be if you're putting a post in their front yard with a sign on it. It's not. It's better if the contractor is aware, and I don't know their staffing levels, if they can just replace a body relatively easier, but they just need to be aware that if they're parked on the side of the road, they're gonna jeopardize your ability to stockpile your material for the spring, so. Councilor Billy?
Thank you. So just for clarification, Councillor Suppose, you just mentioned revisiting the agreement now in tandem.
Well, yeah, my suggestion was, well, if they're gonna be coming here every year for the next 5 years, why not just get rid of it first? Like, we're spending already 35 minutes and we got a lot of stuff on our plate. I think it's behooves us to be more efficient with our time and staff's time. And accordingly, I'm saying let's incorporate an agreement. Now, there does become an issue, and staff can bring it back and say, look, we got an issue here, and,
Just for clarity for her, are you in favor of approving the extension this year with then staff going back to work on the agreement, or does the agreement have to be in place first?
it's not, we will get this one through, and we work on the next 4 years to get it all done.
I think that's what you were looking for, right?
And then within the agreement would be this shift of allowing the December 15th, is that what we're going?
Whatever we agree to today, we'll put in the agreement, that's what I'm saying.
Yep, okay,
Well, I'll be honest. If we're opening the agreement, Dufferin can come with whatever ask they
Anything goes,
want
yeah.
and vice versa.
Yeah.
I mean, the starting point is the 8 till 6.
Yeah.
And that's when staff will work with Kevin, and if there isn't common ground, then it may not happen, so. But there could be other things that come up, and we may have asked that we haven't discussed yet today, so.
okay. So I'm
I
hearing,
guess, Mr. Mayor, I was limiting the scope to this. Are you saying you want to reopen the entire agreement?
So through you, Mr. Chair, there's a number of agreements and amendments that have been made, so staff would like an opportunity prior to confirming that we're going to make the change to take a look at those agreements and bring them back to council for approval. Part of what we will be looking at is to formally amend it to include the potential changes of the operating season and hours, but there might be other things that we need to look at too.
Fair enough. Okay, so we'll do this one first, and then we work on the agreement with subsequent use.
okay. So first thing is agreeing to the extension today, which I'm in favor of. And then I like the discussion around the left turn lane or a left, I don't know, if we need a left turn lane, but a left signal, something to keep the flow of traffic going. And then looking at revisiting an agreement for moving forward. And then making sure we have that communication with the neighbors.
Okay, Councilor Hurst,
I'm good. I think my concerns have been addressed.
Councilor Goyda?
Yeah, I'm good with the extension for this year. And to look at opening up that agreement. Sorry. I'm struggling with my throat. Just a question though, maybe this is to Courtney, if we're opening up that agreement and looking at sort of all, like holistically, is that something that happens that can happen at the staff level? Or at that point, do we need to start retaining consultants to view various aspects of that?
So through you, Mr. Chair, we'd want to work with our township solicitor. We likely want to work with our planner and potentially our hydrogeologist. So it would be a review of that nature.
Okay, so it's maybe a bigger project that it'll take some time. Okay, otherwise I'm in agreement with all of the other. Looking at the left turn signal, addressing the trucks parked on the side of the road. I'm good with all of those.
I may say that I wouldn't be opposed to if there's a review call of the agreements. If there's common ground on the haulage part of it, that coming back to council for endorsement. If we're reviewing everything else and there's consultants required and maybe some disagreement or whatever, I wouldn't want to hold up everything, like the haulage part of it. Because we did make some good gains for our community on that and still work on the other components, because I'm not a lawyer, but I mean, I would assume that our agreement that's in place now would stand until we agree to amend it. So there's an opportunity to kind of work with this, and then thus with the tonnage increase coming through, all that, those consultants may be utilized already for that. So we'll leave that with staff. Rocks. I don't believe they're falling off the top. They're stuck in the duals. What does Dufferin at other sites, or what sort of mechanism do you have to get them to pop out sooner than on the road?
We were really cracking down on the truck drivers to make sure they check every load. Don't get complacent or lazy and just go, yeah, my automatic tarp has gone on. I can keep going. No, pull over. We have a tarping area. Get out, check your truck. And take them out with a bar if you need to. And I've been out there myself twice last week, and we've had another person from our logistics teams watching the truck drivers to make sure that gets addressed. And we will continue that.
Do we need wording in there? No, I'm gonna leave that with you and with them, because, it sounds like you're working on it. My final statement would be, I don't see any one of those trucks tarping their loads going from. That's, to me, it's illegal. Every load needs to be tarped, but my understanding is. That material is so heavy that the likelihood of it being above the boards, which are the boards are on the top of the truck for the loaders, so they don't wreck the box. Coming out is very minute chance, right? So, and that's on the driver. If an OPP or MTO drives by, sees that their loads on tarp, they're getting the ticket. I think the source of the rocks and the roads is the duals, and that's something, sounds like you're being proactive with, and I'm appreciative of that, so. What do you have captured, Ms. Whitefox?
The council receives a delegation by Kevin Mitchell from Dufferin Aggregates regarding Aberfoyle Pit 2 request for extension of hauling dates. And the council approved the request for extended operations from November 15th, 2023 to December 15th, 2023, Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. And the Dufferin Aggregates be responsible to notify neighbors of the change in operations for the 2023 season. And the council make the approval of the extension conditional, subject to no trucks being parked on Victoria Road. And the council directs staff to work jointly with Dufferin Aggregates to contact the County of Wellington to adjust the timing of the red light at the intersection and include the consideration of a left-hand turn light to allow for better traffic flow. And where Dufferin Aggregates routinely makes this request of council on an annual basis, the council directs staff to work with Dufferin Aggregates to formally review and potentially amend the agreement to include amendments to the operating season, operating days and times, road maintenance obligation, establishing a complaint protocol, etc.
Okay, move for that, Councilor Slows. Councilor Hurst, any final comment? Does it capture the compliance component when we're reviewing the agreement?
Yes.
Okay. All right, any final thoughts? You good?
Thank you very much. Appreciate your the conversation and that open dialogue.
All right, all in favor? Great, so as soon as you give me that letter for the county, I'll start
Thank
talking
you.
with my colleagues up there, and
Thank you very much.
you're welcome. Have a good day. All right, I believe we're on to our next delegation. I think this might not be-
Correspondence.
Felix, come on up. Do we need another chair? Maybe,
I can stand, it's fine. I've been sitting for a while.
okay. Where you want to sit over here? Yeah, sure. Maybe. You sure you don't?
No, I'm good, I can sit.
It's gonna be weird if you stand. Yeah,
Steve.
just you get a chair.
Steve, do you want to come sit here?
Sorry, that we're a little delayed, but it's all important work. Sorry, which item, 10.1? Did you want to speak first, or you want to go first? Or you want to do it? All right, students, you sit down, then we'll. All right, welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting us.
Go ahead.
Let's just introduce ourselves. Okay, I'll introduce myself first. My name is Judy Dawson Keys. I'm a resident of Mini Lakes for 8 years. I am on the current board of directors. I've been on the board of directors for 2 years, and as of June this year, I am the president of the board.
I'm Jack Taylor. I'm also a resident of Mini Lakes for 12 years. I'm a former president. I'm now on the board as a director.
And I'm Sonia Semeniuk. I work for the Ontario Clean Water Agency, so we're the corporation that's running their water treatment or water and wastewater treatment. And I'm their main liaison because we have a number of things going on at Mini Lakes. So I kind of have the best idea of everything that's going on, but not necessarily the most technical understanding of what's going on, because that would be Jose.
All right, and maybe I'll ask Steve, I mean, we don't want to go through your report word for word, but just give us a high level of your report, and then there's conclusion recommendations, 10.0, correct? On your report?
Sure. So we've been reviewing the reports probably for well over 10 years, the annual reports. And since about 2017, 2018, they've been non-compliant with a few issues that seem to come and go. And then we've been very lightly involved. I think you and I met maybe,
Yeah, I believe we were at a meeting together.
yeah, like probably 5 years ago.
Yeah, that's.
When I think Aqua took over as the operator, and there's been discussions of upgrades to the plant. And our interpretation is there's kind of been some tweaks or maybe describe them as Band-Aid repairs to sort of get you through until sometime as you're gonna build a new plant. And I guess our main question is, as with, I'm sure with council, when?
Yeah, and honestly, and Mini Lakes are with you on that. We would like to get all these upgrades done. We had, in I think about 2017, Jose went through and did an options evaluation. So here are the options for upgrading the plant, and this is what you should do. And we went ahead with the SBR design. So then we procured Associated Engineering to do the design of the SBR, and about the 30% mark hit, and they're like, okay, you know what? With all of, as you know, construction pricing has gone through the roof in the last 5 years or so. It's been insane. The pricing is crazy, and they're like, you know, we think there may be better options. So we got our process optimization engineer in to look at the RBC, which is their existing plant. And they went through and kind of said, okay, here's some things that would put you in with your ECA that you have existing that we're recommending a while ago that haven't been implemented. So we kind of had, okay, we could be doing that. Associated looked at other options to say, yeah, you could do the SBR still. You could also do an MABR and things above my engineering understanding, because I don't do treatment. But they came up with a new report and said, you know what, based on cost now, based on risks now, based on what we're seeing, the best option is an MABR. And so this year.
The acronyms.
Yeah.
You may
it's
have
different
to
mix of
elaborate a
treatment.
little bit.
So-
I know they're in
Yeah,
there.
SBR is membrane aerated biofilm reactor.
I come from an acronym.
Yeah, so the SBR is
I
a
Googled
change to a package plant, but the MABR also a package plant is a bit smaller footprint.
Okay.
And it's a newer technology that's being used. So so they recommended that, and the cost actually kind of was comparable to looking at their current RBCs, which they've been operating now, which are being band-aided together, like something broke, the gearbox broke this year. And the supplier doesn't even have a part to replace it. We brought another contractor in to give us an estimate. He's like, I'm not touching this with a 10-foot pole. So we need to get something in there. Our operators need to get something in there. Like everybody needs to get something in there. We've decided to go with the MABR. Associated has been in the design process for that. We've got the geotech out, so they're doing that. So they had to restart a bit of the design process. So they're doing design. Also in the meantime, we did an inspection of the tile beds, the disposal system, the subsurface disposal system. And they're like, no, you can't. We've been having breakouts, and we're like, how bad is this? And they're like, you've got to replace it. We brought the engineers and the geotechs in, and they said, you'd have to build it up. You can't build it up. We need to move it. So we have now have a new location. We're doing geotech at that new location. We've got to move the tile beds over there and install a force main. So we've done a procurement to keep things simple and use our same design engineer, because having two design engineers do those two different projects would be a nightmare. So they're doing it all. They've got the geotech done. They're starting the design. We anticipate the tile beds will be moved next year into 2024, and the treatment plant will be 2025. As there's high risk with the failure of the current system, and it's currently on our mind, Aqua does own what we call a portable treatment facility. And it's up in Espanola right now, and it's kind of where we need it if we need it, and we can modify it to suit the needs of the community that we take it to. So right now, we're gonna have Associated look at what they need to do to modify that, so we can bring it on site. And should that RBC fatally fail catastrophically, we'll have the emergency treatment unit on there so that we can do the next 2 years till we get that new plant in. So we are having risk meetings, and we are meeting with engineers, our engineers, Associated's engineers, and we're doing everything we can to get this thing moving. But it honestly, I've been on this project since probably 2017.
Mhm.
And like almost every day we get a new study or a new geotech investigation or new something coming on that we're just like, wow, we gotta pivot. And we've been pivoting a lot. And we think we're on a path now that knock wood, we don't get any more weird discoveries coming up.
Speaking of that path, so there's also the component of the weeping bed.
Yeah.
And that's been replaced, or in the report it says it was identified as being full and repairs been made. So has that been completed?
We've got it working as best we can for the moment. We've got to move it. And so it'll be moved next
So
year. And it's been moved before. This
It's
is
been
the first
band-aided.
time.
Another thing that was a little worrisome to me, and you can explain to the council here about the processes. It sounds like there was, some upgrades, there was several of them, and one was the backup generators. And then it went to a vote and the residents said no. So I want to know the process for this. Does this mean you know, does the board have the authority to go to procurement and approve the project, or does that go to vote every time through that step? Because what I'm trying to get at is people are gonna see the price tag and go, no way, this is still working, kind of. We're not approving this. Well, and that's concerning to us, or to me anyways, as the municipality. I wanna have the confidence that the board has the authority and the ability to move forward to get this project started and completed by 25.
Yeah,
Even
we had a borrowing, we put in a borrowing bylaw. And we do have the funds sitting there. We have not borrowed against the funds as yet. That's been in place for probably 3 years now. I believe 5 million is available to us on a construction line. We will borrow against it as required. That will fund the wastewater treatment plant. Should there be anything additional that comes up, we as a board do have the authority to assess a special assessment against the residents, which will be done if necessary.
So, if this bill comes in well above your $5 million estimation, is it your opinion that this is going forward regardless?
Yes, it has to.
It has
There's no choice. I'm a resident. I don't want a special assessment, but if I have to deal with it, it needs to be fixed. We need to.
At the county, we've just been seeing reports, for all of our construction bills are way up, and it's
Mhm.
just. We're
If
dealing with it.
it comes down to being a special assessment, it will be a special assessment, and as a board, we do have the authority. It does not need to go to a vote. So the
Okay.
community, we can assess a special assessment.
Just want to ask our chief building official, is Mini Lakes built out currently, or are there still, and you may have been able to answer this, but I just, go to staff. Is he there? Sorry.
Yeah, I believe there's still a vacant lot or two, but I would have to check. I know there was a couple developed when I first arrived here in 2021, but I haven't seen anything new for a while. But I think there was a
Okay,
couple
so-
vacant lots left.
Because it was always a concern of mine that we're from 2017, and at that time, it wasn't full, and we kept bringing
No.
on more.
Yeah.
And now we're really at the end of the road, end of the line for this system,
Yeah.
but it sounds like it's built out.
There is one lot. But it is outside of our gate 3. And Mike Ketcher owns the lot and he can't get approval to build on it.
Well, and one wouldn't be, there was 20 lots sitting there waiting to be hooked up, that's a different.
Now,
animal
all of
versus-
everything in the our new section has been built out.
The last house was just sold,
Was
was it
just sold. Yeah.
2 days ago?
Okay, you spoke of the infiltration and it's around the weather events, snow melt. But then the report, it speaks to the water level or water table being high. So, and it's an interesting concept that it's rated for a certain amount, and then you just divide it by 12 months and just hope it's under that, 115 or whatever. I think we're fortunate that there's only 1 or 2 times a year it exceeds, or goes into the 200 range, but is there any planning to deal with the infiltration, or is it just more?
Yeah, we've started, we did a CCTV inspection in 2019, and we got a good look at most of it, and it's actually, from what you can see, the trick with CCTV, if it's not actively infiltrating, when you put that camera through, you're not going to see it. So that inspection actually went really well, and we didn't have too many problems. There are a couple saggy areas in the pipe that we're seeing. So we are keeping an eye on it. There's one area that we had an issue, but it was more, there was a blockage in the pipe than there was extra water coming in. The suggestion for the maintenance holes, I personally haven't had a look at them, but we'll go look at them, because it is, if they're low, we can bring them up. That's not a big deal. We can put the basins in them and have the operations group empty them as needed, and it's not a big deal. I know from how high the water table is that it's just like you really need to know whether it's coming in through the infrastructure, coming in through the maintenance holes, but we'll have a look and we'll do what we can to move water table.
It can be on the list. I think the priority is the treatment plant and then,
And these are fairly small operations.
sorry to interrupt. I think I interrupted you at some point there. Not you.
I may have interrupted that too.
All right, I'll leave this open. Council Lewis?
Yes, a question for Chair Blueplan. Have you seen the response that OCWA has provided in response to recommendations and conclusions?
No, I don't think we have.
Okay, I was wondering if staff would pass that on to them and advise us of any comments and concerns. Looking at it in principle, it looks good. It's reassuring to hear that you folks are taking this seriously and have a plan in place. I was wondering if we can ask you to continue giving us a quarterly updated schedule. Used to do that. I know it would last for a few quarters. I was wondering if we get that back on, especially with the design and construction of these two plants and the tower
And who do we send that to?
township. Well, thank you, and I appreciate your candid answer. You got the funding in place, and if need be, you'll get it in place. And we certainly, township does not want to own this plant. If we do, then we won't be as nice.
Councillor Bailey.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad to hear there's a plan in place and we have some dates and things are moving along. My question was about the funding. So just following through with that $5 million that you would borrow, then all residents would just be required to be paying that back through dues and fees and stuff like that. Okay. Which is, yeah, which will be really tricky for a lot of folks on fixed income, but this needs to happen. And I had asked about, I was going to ask about how many more residents, are due to come into the park, but it sounds like we're at capacity, so that's there. That's good. Is there any opportunity, once the system's in, to kind of have it in segments where you can be, if maintenance is needed, we're going to shut down this third so that we can do maintenance on it and not impact the rest? Like, will the system be sort of set up?
Yeah, there's a redundant train. Even the current system has 2 trains.
Okay.
But they're running on the 1 train now because that one gearbox is down on the other side. So currently we're sitting at no backup for that one because the backup's down. So yeah, that is part of the design, is to have the 2 trains so that you can switch if you need to do maintenance on one or what have you.
Okay. And then I guess just an overarching question. What have we learned from now that we can put in place so that this won't be repeated in the future?
Oh, it's a life of the plan is expected to be 20 years, and we knew that in 2017 when we started planning. What we didn't anticipate was COVID and the significant increase in construction costs. That's if that hadn't happened, we'd have been in place by now. But with the significant costs, with the plant that we were anticipating was coming out of the States, there were supply issues with that. Yeah, it was a whole bunch. It was the perfect storm of, to stop the project.
In a municipality, a lot of times you have the buffer of external funding, like from the government or whatever, for all these infrastructure projects. And we don't have that at Mini Lakes. Like they're footing the bill for everything. So the minute those costs started escalating the way they did, we just put the brakes on the whole thing to say we need to look at this because we can't continue to push this through. So that's why we kind of took a step back to look at the options again.
So building on Councillor Bailey's question, what's the amortization of the new system? So are you gonna have a window where you're gonna be able to save money for the next one? That's kind of what you're asking.
Kind of what I'm thinking. Yeah.
We have a significant amount of our fees go to the reserve fund for the wastewater and also our drinking water reserves. So, looking forward, we've been a condo since 2016. Can't really speak to what happened before when it was a residents association. It wasn't as regulated as we are now as a condo. We put a significant amount. We did our budget last night actually for fiscal 24. And we're looking at almost 50% of our fees goes to reserve.
What we're asking is, once you borrow to build this, will you have it paid off in 10 years and the lifespan is 20 of the new system, and then you'll have 10 years
I
of
believe
saving
the
money?
payback term is 7 years.
Oh, so you're.
I believe it's 7 years.
So,
We can report on you exactly what that is. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's certainly not 20 years. And we will continue to increase the fees to fund that. The fees will probably go up significantly when we start repaying, because it's a large amount of money
Mhm.
to repay, but we have 292 units paying into that every month. So it's a significant amount of money that is going into that and will definitely be paid off in, it would be less than 10 years. And then that money will continue to go into reserve towards the wastewater treatment plant for the future.
Excellent.
If I can just interject, part of the problem was before we became a condo. I was the first president, had to go in and try to do some cleanup. Under the old system, the board really tried to just keep expenses as low as they possibly could. And the board did not have the same ability as we have now because we come under the Condo Act.
Nice.
And under the Condo Act, we can do whatever is necessary to make sure that things work and it is law. And as we said earlier, the owners really have no say in the matter. The only say they have is how we're going to finance it. Are we going to take a loan or are we going to do an assessment?
Yeah.
And when we had the vote, I was on the board at that time, and it was clear that they would rather not have an assessment. Number one, if you have an assessment, they have to pay for it all up front. If we're doing it on a loan, it's being paid off over a number of years. So if they sell their house, they're clear of it, but and so on. So it's a totally different ballgame now than what it was prior to being in contact.
And that's good news, because I understand, the increases could affect people's ability to, to live. But it sounds like we're at a crossroads here where this has to be done. Like we've exhausted let's just make this thing work for a little while, that ship has sailed. So, and I'm glad to hear that now you have that ability and we sit here and do the same thing.
And part of the problem
Tough
too
decisions,
was,
right? And
part of the problem too was when I took over the company that was doing the operations thing, was not doing a good job.
Yeah.
They were playing games with us and so on. So that's one of the reasons we brought Tackle in because, we needed to get proper directions, what we needed to do.
Councilor Bailey, sorry for interjecting.
I think I'm good.
Okay.
I'll leave it at that.
Councilor Hurst?
Yeah, just a couple things. So, hey, it gives me good comfort that as a board, you're thinking about this both today and into the future. And I think, when I hear the challenge that you have as a board representing 292, that's not an easy thing, right? Like you're herding cats, right? So I think what I'm encouraged to hear is that you're moving forward. And I think that's really positive. I think to piggyback in Councillor Sapoulis's comments, I think getting quarterly updates on progress reports would be very welcomed, I would say. And but I think, from a financial management standpoint, I quite appreciate your approach of, look, you can't make this paralyzing for all the residents there, but also eyes wide open that, you need to do something, and putting one's head in the sand isn't the solution, right? So I very much appreciate that. I think the second piece that I was glad to hear is a relief mechanism if there's a catastrophic failure. And I think that's quite comforting to hear that it's not a scenario where you're like, we got a problem. Thinking it through, say, if this happens, what is our plan A? What is our plan B? So on and so forth. And I think that's comforting because when it goes south fast and can be very, very messy and everything that goes along with that. So I think that's something. I think the one question I would have, and maybe this is more for you to discuss internally, but the relative costs of bringing in a relief unit presumably would not be inexpensive. So that may in fact be an additional expenditure that one would have to comprehend. So I think if you haven't had that conversation internally, that's probably at least a rough number that you'd want to have in the back of your head just for preparedness planning. And I think from my standpoint, I think just happy to see that there's a path forward, and certainly encourage further consultation with GM Blue Plan to make sure that there's a degree of oversight associated with this and looking forward to your progress. I think that's key for me. Thank you.
Councilor Gordon?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm just, I'd like to echo the comments of the rest of council. It's just, it's definitely comforting to hear, that there's a path forward. It did feel for a while that we were really just at a standstill with any progress forward. So, I'm definitely happy to hear that there's now a path, a plan, and to echo, Councilor Hurst, that there's a contingency should what is there now fail, so that's comforting to hear. We received, I'm presuming that this was done by yourselves, this sort of chart of responses to the concerns that was prepared by GM Blue Plan. This is actually very helpful, at least for myself, to kind of understand where sort of each of these, what's being done to address each of these components individually. And I do agree that it would be helpful for us to have sort of quarterly updates. I'm wondering if through that update, if it could kind of be, this same format that you're updating us on all of these points where progress has been made on all of these points. This is much more informative than we were getting these reports at one point in time. That was kind of just like, I don't know, it was difficult to understand what was being updated. So this is much more helpful.
So if you want us to use that same format, those same questions, or if you as council want to put together a list of what your concerns would be that you would like us to report on quarterly and then forward that through the property manager, you can certainly address that. Okay, that would be great. Thank you.
Are you comfortable with the status quo question?
I like this approach, but I don't know if there's other questions.
I'd like to see a schedule with a start, engineering, tender, start construction and construction for the major activities that you got underway. There's 3 major activities, the 2 systems and then the leaking tile.
Thank you, Catherine. I agree. We want to make sure that this is continuing to move forward. Any other comments? Councilor Bill?
I was just gonna say, if we stick with whatever format we use, if the format can stay the same. And then highlighting what the changes are, 'cause I don't wanna have to read through a whole report if nothing's changed on it, but red ink or whatever it is, saying these are the changes since the last time we've reported it. That would be really helpful as well.
Councilor Hurst, anything?
That's good. Path forward, timelines, objectives being met, delayed, ahead of schedule. I think that's key.
So I'm gonna talk about something that's maybe a bit sensitive, but I think there's value in it. Oh, Steve, go ahead.
I'm permitted a question.
Yeah.
You had mentioned there's a temporary emergency system somewhere up north. Maybe if we could get some clarity on when that's available.
Yeah, and that's the one thing I've got Associated Engineering, because what they want to do as well, because they have access, or may have access to it. They want to use it as the temporary bypass when they install the new system as part of the construction sequencing. So we've asked them for a quote for them to go and look at the unit to determine what they want done to it and what would need to be done to get this thing operational down in Mini Lakes. That's where we are with that right now. So as soon as I get that quote from them, that will be passed on to Mini Lakes to approve or deny, and then we'll get things rolling for sure.
So follow-up question, so that plant is up north, but it's not currently working.
It's not
parked
being
up
used. It
there.
hasn't been used for a while. So there will be a couple things and where we used it there, the way we used it there may not be the way we need to use it there. It's like a big tank on wheels essentially.
So essentially it's in storage
Yeah.
and it happens to be up north.
Yeah. So we just have to bring it down. And we've already looked, Dawn and I were walking the path down Mini Lakes to see which hydro lines we'd have to raise to get it down and that kind of stuff already. So, and where we're gonna put it when it comes in.
All right, thank you. And I guess just a point of clarity for council, this system is requires an ECA from the MOE. So the MOE is the ultimate authority from a approval perspective. And I'm assuming that through your design, it'll be going through the MOE for an update with the C of A.
Yeah, and I'd have to take a look at that because I don't know if we've got one pre-approved because of the way we use it. Like,
Okay.
because we're auto, we tend to do things like we have a better line to the MECP than.
Sorry, my comment was for the final design.
Oh, yeah, no, that's
Permit
on the critical path as well, so.
So GM Blue Plan, we're not involved in reviewing the design of the new system.
MECP is.
That will be the, yes, thank you, the MECP. we're here for oversight,
Yeah.
for a council.
Yeah, and the ministry, we've had, Associates already had some meetings with the ministry to find out what they're in their design parameters. And they've increased some of the sampling requirements already, so we have that factored in. So in theory, because we've had these pre-consultations, it makes it a smoother process at the end because they're involved at the beginning.
There's nothing forbidding you from sharing those designs with the township and having Steve comment, and then I would assume that because of the size of that system, it would be posted on an ERO or something. Or would it be a commenting agency, is that a fair assumption?
That, I don't.
Because didn't we have to comment on Zelinski septic?
So through you, Mr. Chair, I believe the municipality is notified, but I'm not sure with this type of system has noted what that notification would look like.
It would be beneficial if, well, we're gonna be involved through the process, so please just share that with us.
I'm sorry, and one last question,
You said one.
sorry. I like to talk sometimes. In one of your responses to our, question number 1, you mentioned that you're hauling 2 loads of solids every Tuesday. In the past, because we've had a TSSA concern, I guess, since 2018. In the past, they were hauling, solids out as well, or is that a relatively newer thing?
I don't know how long we've been doing that. I'd have to check with Dawn. I don't know offhand how long we've been going. So I don't have that.
But it's a regular occurrence
Mhm.
now on,
Yeah.
I think you said you're upgrading to twice a week.
Yeah, well, they have 2 loads on Tuesday, and what they were gonna do with the TSS concerns was they were gonna add another load, and Jose actually said, you know what, can we separate the loads and see if that helps first, so we're not increasing cost? And then if that doesn't work, then let's go back to the 2 on Tuesday and 1 later in the week. So they've started trying that. And they'll do some measurements
But
and
you're
see.
actively sort of monitoring that and looking at that.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
So is that pre-treatment loads or is this
No, I
mid-treatment
think it's
loads?
the sludge and.
And sludge,
tank.
sludge haulage.
So anyways, with the new system up, then I would assume you're gonna have some cost savings, because
Absolutely.
that can't be cheap,
It's about $1,200 a load.
yeah, per week.
Per week, yeah, it's about
Yeah.
1,300 a week.
Per
I
load.
think Dawn was
So we're
saying.
doing 2 loads a week.
And you might be going to 3,
Yeah.
so yeah. So there's some incentive to get
Yeah,
this new
that's
system
taken
built.
into consideration in our budget for this year.
Okay, so, what's the process for if this project gets derailed for cost, some reason, and we need to step in and we as a township want to, or need to, not want, need to put a special assessment on the properties to get this system built? Does that take 2 calendar years? Is that a fairly easy process? What I'm trying to get at is I wanna know if the sound, I'm hearing that this thing's done, if for some reason you guys run into trouble that you can't get it built, we step in, how long does it take us to get everything going so that it can be built?
So through Mr. Chair, and I would ask if Steve has anything to add, but given that the MECP is the approval authority, I think that if we did run into challenges, we would consult with the province on this prior to us sort of looking at next steps in terms of assuming a system. We would be looking at the approval authority for some direction there on what to do.
So if they're designing a system, is the more we're involved, so say they're designing their system. If we're involved, we could pick up wherever they leave off and carry on with their system. If we're commenting, we're generally involved. Versus if they were to be doing it on their own, things go bad, we start from scratch is not, ideal. So what I'm trying to get at is, if we're involved right from the get-go, if worst case scenario, we just pick up from where they left off. Is there a process for that? Like,
So through Mr. Chair, I think it's a complicated thing to answer at this point, but I do see the value in staying involved in the process, and it sounds like that's the plan through these quarterly updates. So I think that that's a good place to start.
I think so as well. I don't believe we're going to go down that road, but I'm just really worried about failure, but we do have a bit of a contingency plan, kind of.
Yeah, well, we'll
storage.
be able to confirm it, I would say within the next quarter or so.
And there's no opportunity to find a different gearbox and weld it in the plate or
Okay.
something, or?
Yeah, I don't even, Don's working on that one. He's essentially trying to do it from the ground level and he's trying to figure it out right now, and I don't know what the answer is.
So in parallel, you're still trying to get your,
Yeah.
second, what do you call it?
RBC.
But it's the second channel, second,
Yeah.
whatever. Back up and, sorry, prepared so that it can be
Prepared and
utilized. Along with that, you're working on the aqua trailer trip tank.
Mhm.
Come down, and your intention with the aqua treatment plant is that it would meet the requirements of
Mhm.
this, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, we're good. All right.
Now, Mr. Mayor, I just want to clarify, I don't think we should have our consultant reviewing their design, because it's their responsibility, they own it, and if it goes wrong, it's their responsibility. I don't want us to be in there looking over their shoulders, and we say, well, you should do this, and then we own it, type of thing. I don't think we want the responsibility.
I just want staff involved.
I can understand schedule wise, that sort of thing, the nitty gritty details.
Yeah, I'm not,
That's up to them.
I'm not trying to go that direction, but I just wanna see staff, they can work together. I just don't wanna start from scratch, things.
Well, it depends, Mr. Mayor, like, if we have to start from scratch, it'd be new technologies on the way type of thing, and there might be even better way of doing it. Our consultant may come up with something completely novel, which would be even less costly. I don't know.
Yeah, okay. It sounds like there's gonna be communication, which is key, so. Is there a resolution?
The council received the Mini Lakes twenty twenty-two annual operations and maintenance report for wastewater treatment system and GeoBlueprints peer review for information. And the council requests that Mini Lakes continue to provide quarterly updates, progress updates, including a construction schedule to the township as was done in previous years. And the council requests that Mini Lakes provide additional information relating to the emergency treatment system and how soon it could be made available if needed in Mini Lakes.
Okay, can we move for that? Counselor Bailey?
Yep.
Counselor Goyette, thank you.
Sure.
Any last comments?
This was helpful. I feel like this was a good delegation. Thank you.
And I personally would, I love the way you summarize these conversations, even the last one, I need someone like that in all of my meetings. They're so
Hey,
concise, yeah.
No. You're not going anywhere. All right, all in favor? Carry.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
If you have any questions about that, feel free to reach out.
From fire.
Yeah, thank you. We'll leave it to the.
I didn't see the final.
We didn't have it in the motion. I think it was very, you want our consultant to have a look at it. That's fine. I don't mind.
Like,
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, you're good. Unless you have other questions.
It's nice to initially meet you.
Yeah, just to ask us.
Those are your questions. Yeah. What do you need? Like, sorry, but like $5 million.
We're running a little bit behind, Chris, but it's Chris, right? I think after this one, we'll break. Or I'm just making it simple. Yeah, sorry.
Thanks, you take care.
You know what? I am. Okay.
So it's here.
It is warm.
Drink more
But
coffee.
it's outdoor today.
All right, we're gonna start with Chris from Fire Marquee.
I believe there's a PowerPoint presentation on that.
We don't need, no offense, side by side, but we have seen the report and I'm familiar with it, from high level.
Oh, your worship, I will be quick. I understand as a former mayor, when we get into
Oh,
these
you are
long,
former.
long meetings, so. If I can conserve some time, I might get some extra goodwill. Next slide, please. Firemark began its operations on the operational side in 2011. We started with 0 clients in Canada, and we are a Canadian company and created. We now have a third of Ontario's municipalities as clients, and also 1 First Nations community. We've also expanded into British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and New Brunswick. And I will be actually in one of the western provinces tomorrow. I'm flying out rather early. Next slide, please. The insurance industry has had a dramatic change in the 12 years I've been with Firemark. There used to be 234 insurance companies out coast to coast. We're now down to 193. There's the top 20. They represent 80%, 84% of the marketplace. Next slide, please. I'll go through the next set of slides really quickly. Under the additional coverages section in almost all property insurance policies in Canada, under fire department service charges, there will be an amount that is recoverable for the municipal fire service in response to an insured peril. A structure fire is an insured peril, but there are other insured perils as well, like tornadoes, hurricanes, lightning strikes, explosions, plane crashes, boat fires, and it goes on and on. Next slide, please. The amounts vary depending on the company and the policy that's issued. We do have the policy wordings for most of the companies, and the amounts vary from anywhere from 1,000, 3,000, 5,000. The one previous to this was 25,000. My home in Collingwood, Ontario, is insured with Aviva, and it's actually an unlimited fire department coverage. Next slide, please. And once more. This is the important slide in communicating to the people probably listening at home today and yourselves, is that our process is designed that we interact with the insurance adjuster for the other side. So let's say it's the cooperators has insured the property, we would deal with the adjuster for cooperators, and we would send them a copy of the detailed invoice, and we would bill to the limits of the insurance coverage. So we're not sending to your constituent or stakeholder, your neighbor, your community member, a bill and asking them to pay the bill and then go to the insurance company and be reimbursed. Next slide, please. Once more. We are asking 2 things of you today. One, to pass a bylaw to enter into an agency agreement with us, essentially, so that we do have the authority to work on your behalf, because the insurance industry won't take my word for it that we do. They need to see a copy of the bylaw. And secondly, to amend your consolidated fee bylaw or to pass a standalone cost recovery bylaw. Next slide. And that bylaw is required because the policy wording in the insurance contract says, and this is just an example of all states homeowner wordings, that they will reimburse up to $5,000 if there's a requirement to pay. You, as local elected officials, you have the privilege of passing local legislation by bylaw, and that is the key to unlocking the insurance contract to get access to that coverage. If the bylaw is not in place, you're likely to be denied access to get that coverage. Next slide, please. There was one more on that, and I'll just, because you're doing the PDF and I'm doing an animated PowerPoint when I'm looking at it. The Insurance Bureau of Canada has commented on these type of bylaws, and Stephen Keys, I believe Stephen Key was the person who was quoted from the Insurance Bureau of Canada as quoting as the bylaws are both legal and enforceable. So it is something that you are entitled and privileged to do. Next slide is there. The fire chief is familiar, previous fire chief is certainly familiar with the process. Brad Bigrig, I spoke with earlier this week. I know that Brad is also familiar with the process because he's moved around to a number of departments, and he's been with departments where we've had the system in place for it. So essentially, we want to copy the standard incident report. And then from that point, we pull up our database and we work with the insurance company on the other side. Average recovery is 14 weeks. Minimum recovery has been 8 days. The longest recovery has been 42 months. It just depends on the complexity of the incident. The one that was 42 months was an industrial fire. And so we had to wait for the maximum bills to all be paid because it had a maximum set limit of over $5 million. So we were still able to recover for our client in excess of $30,000. You receive 70% of the funds recovered, we retain 30% for ourselves. If there is no recovery, there is no cost, there's no annual, there's no minimum. The only time our company receives compensation is if the municipality receives compensation. The money stays within the fire service budget. I'll go through this very quickly. Public education, next slide. Personnel training. And next slide, capital purchases. There's a difference between a fee and taxation. And municipalities have limited taxation powers. They have broad powers when it comes to fee. If a fee becomes general revenues, it can be challenged as an indirect tax, and therefore you don't have the authority to do it. We've taken that ability away by ensuring that in our contract with you under Section 5, that the money stays within the fire service budget. Next slide, please. Love the new municipal act. I was the mayor or as a councillor when we were under the old municipal act under the thumb of the province. I mean, we're still there, but it's not pushing down as hard. With natural persons powers, I was a mayor when we had natural persons powers. So essentially you can do whatever you like within the act as long as you pass the test of reasonableness. So is it reasonable for a municipality to pass a bylaw to unlock an insurance contract to which you're not a signatory to that contract? However, under the additional coverages sections, you are entitled to receive those fire department charges, cost recovery. The policyholder is not entitled to receive those funds. Only the fire service is. So if the fire service doesn't get it, then the insurance company keeps it. So of course, it's reasonable for you to pass legislation to unlock that coverage because the insurance contract says you have to. Next slide, please. The insurance industry likes to promote their large losses. And so I get that. I mean, it's all about messaging. But I would like to point out that an independent magazine here, the Canadian Underwriter magazine did point out in 2022, it's the highest rate of return or on equity, return on equity since 2003 to 2004. So there's plenty of opportunities for the industry to make money. I don't want you to feel sad that they might be making a little less money. I shouldn't laugh, but I do. The premium that the policyholder or the insurance company set covers taxations. It covers claim costs. So they've already calculated into their cost for the premium that the policyholder is paying that they should be paying out the fire department service charges. You will hear from the insurance industry, if you pay out more in claims, we're going to have to raise premiums. You have this debate when you do your municipal budgets. There are line items in your budgets that are not affected by inflation. Fire department service charge, I'm going to use cooperators as an example. In 2014, it's $5,000. In 2023, it's $5,000. In 2030, I'm going to take a big guess and say it's going to be $5,000. So there is no inflationary pressure on that line item. They've already costed and forecasted. The inflationary pressure is on the replacement of the contents of the home and rebuilding the property. Next slide, please. I'm just going to skip through these because you don't really need to know it. I'm going to try and save it up so you have some extra time to have a break. This is an example of an insurance policy. I would like to point out that the fire department coverage is a teeny tiny portion of the overall cost. The identified premiums in this policy, this was my policy from 2014, identified 98.3% of the total premiums that I paid. Next slide. And at that time, the company that I was with only had a fire department service charge of $2,000. So it's a small portion. Our projection is that you're paying $1.90 to $3.40 per $1,000 of coverage. So in this case, let's round it up, $2 to $4. So you're paying $4 to $8 for this coverage in your policy. Next slide, please. And just keep going. Save some time. There is no deductible applied to this section of the policy. I was asked through the people that hired me to look at this with a municipal lens to make sure that we weren't harming the policyholder in any way. And so we ensured that it is written in all contracts that there is no deductible applied. It does not, next slide, please. It does not affect what the policyholder is entitled to pay. If it is a policy written that way, and there are exceptions, we wait till the end of the process to ensure that the policyholder is entitled to all of their funds. Almost all policies are written though, if you're entitled to $500,000, and there's $5,000 set aside for the fire service, the policyholder is still going to get the $500,000. and the fire service under the additional coverages will still get the 5,000. Next slide. You may get asked this question, is why we pay taxes to have a fire service. You are paying taxes to have your fire service ready and well-trained and to go with the equipment that they need. However, the policyholder has paid for this coverage, and there are expenses that are defined as a consumable in response to this incident, and that's what we're recovering. Next slide, please. Thanks for telling us how to do it. Why can't we do it ourselves? It's a little more complicated than just sending an invoice to the insurance company. It might shock you. They don't like to send checks out just because they receive an invoice. Our team is overseen by a retired insurance adjuster. So we are talking the language that they talk and communicating that way. And our recovery rate is pretty good. Next slide, please. And I'm just going to skip through that whole line so you don't have to see that. Next slide. It's always fun to drop off a check. I love dropping off checks. You might be surprised again that you don't have to make an appointment to drop off a check. People will come out of a meeting to pick up a check. Next slide, and that's it. I'd be happy to ask or answer any questions or concerns you may have.
Okay. All right, Councilor Schools.
It seems like a windfall for our fire services department on the surface. I assume staff will be coming forward with a report on this matter. And in that report, if one of you could address the experience that Senator Wellington, Aaron, and Gulf Hermosa had with that, because they're the three companies. I know I looked at their website minutes of the meetings when they were discussing these topics, at least two of them. And the big concern was members from the public voicing that their premiums would go up. And I think you adequately answered my question for that. That's pretty well I have.
Okay. Did you want to speak to next steps? Just for all the councils were.
Certainly. So through you, Mr. Chair, staff are working on a report and bylaw. We're in the process of reviewing the agreement. So all of that will be coming forward to council through our normal budget deliberation. So it should be at an upcoming meeting.
Okay. All right, Councilor Bailey.
Okay, thank you. That answers a big part of it. This was just a detailed question, but in doing a little research on my own, there was an article about a resident after a fire who received a bill. And you had mentioned in your presentation that that's not a typical process, how that would work. So can you just explain how after a fire, this process happens?
Sure, through the mayor to the councillor. So when I used to make the presentations in 2011, when I first started with Firemark, I would say we never needed to communicate with policyholder. So some insurers in the industry thought, well, you know what, I'm going to make a comment to the policyholder. So we want you to copy the information that you send to us. We want you to send it to the policyholder as well. So in establishing that process for specific insurers, there's 193 of them, but there's 234 of them at the time. What we've done is we sat with clients and we worked with the fire chief to draft a letter to say, this is what your insurer has instructed us to do. This is a copy, do not pay. But I think when you scratch a little deeper on that article, you'll find out that that person has a relationship with either an adjuster or a broker or somebody within the industry.
Yeah.
There's a bit of pushback from somebody within, had the opportunity to have a negative story, so they took it.
Mm-hmm. You could just see how that would be really upsetting though, after a fire, receiving some, correspondence like that, you would just hate that.
Sure, and my experience of 13 plus years in municipal politics, I never liked surprises when I was an elected official, and I hated it even worse when I was a mayor, as an elected official, but you didn't like it. And the reality is we did meet with our client. Our client is still our client. We offered to meet with the policyholder. We went through every opportunity to have that discussion. Those follow-up discussions did not make the news, but we have a very happy client in that community.
Okay. And you mentioned that I had the question about percentage that the fire marquee takes on each claim. So it's 30% and 70% to the fire.
Yes, and to assure you, so we have over 170 clients now in 5 provinces, a third of Ontario. Everyone is the same. It doesn't matter if the population, our largest client is in excess of 300,000 and our smallest client is less than 600 people. So everyone is a 70-30 split.
Okay, okay. And then maybe this is more to staff, but if a bylaw is enacted, how are residents informed about this new bylaw? What is the communication kind of from that respect? Is it coming through the fire marquee or does it come through staff? How does that work?
So through Mr. Chair, we don't typically alert our residents to like all of our bylaws or agreements that we pass. If there is a specific public engagement that council wants to see in relation to this, we can certainly look at that, but staff had not anticipated that at this point.
So that we can talk about that later. Just last question, there was just, we have a volunteer fire department here. Is there any factors that would impact a claim if it's, you know, full-time fire department versus volunteer? Is there any discrepancy?
Through the mayor to the councillor. Yes, so the paid on-call firefighters, because they're paid in response to the incident, that is a recoverable cost. For full-time firefighters, that is not a recoverable cost because they're paid whether they're on active response or whether they're just waiting for a call. Overtime for full-time firefighters is recoverable. And then in communities, let's say like Collingwood, where I live, where we have a composite department, if the full-time firefighters are on a call and they bring in paid on duty firefighters to be at the station while they're away so that we're still fully staffed, then that is a recoverable cost.
Okay. And then is maybe from staff, or maybe this is for discussion later, is there value in getting input on this from the public? Would we do any sort of public engagement to help?
So through Mr. Chair, I would say staff don't have a suggestion to do that in advance of passing this sort of a bylaw. I think it's great timing with our budget that we're considering it. There may be value in including some information on our website about what this program is and what it isn't, and the you know, just highlighting that there are no impacts, as Mr. Ferris alluded to in his presentation, to the policy holder. I think a lot of that information sharing is important, so staff can work on that if council chooses to pass the bylaw.
Thank you.
Councilor Hurst?
Yeah, I think some really good questions. I think nailed a lot of the stuff I was looking for. I think my one concern was just the increase in premiums or the perception of increase in premiums for local residents if there's an arrangement in place. I guess one other piece, and maybe this is for staff to get into, but our agreement with Cambridge Fire Department for the far western portion of the municipality and how that may impact what this looks like. I don't know, but that's maybe just something to consider as reports being generated. I think was one where we have an arrangement with another fire department that provides service in addition to the one that we have here. So I think that maybe just a wrinkle.
Through the mayor to the councillor, we have a number of clients who don't want, we have actually 3 clients that don't even have a fire service. They contract out to their neighbors. And we have many clients that portions of their township are covered by somebody else, by another department. So it depends on how that other department is compensated. So if you do full cost recovery and they send you an invoice, then we would get a copy of that invoice and we could actually reimburse you for your costs, which is what we do with our neighbors.
Up to the maximum of the coverage.
Yes, absolutely, up to the maximum of the coverage. So it could be 1,000, 5,000, 10,000, it could be unlimited. And we only bill to the limits of the coverage and to the cost incurred. So if you've incurred $5,000 over the costs and there's $10,000 coverage, you only get 5,000.
Minus 30%.
Correct.
That's it for me.
Thanks. I wanted to just first clarify, I think this is more a question for staff. So fire department service charges. Is that something we're currently billing out to anyone for any reason?
So through Mr. Chair, it might be a better question for our Director of Finance to talk about what we do and don't bill associated with incident calls.
Hi, everyone. I'm sorry, I'm not able to share my video. It won't allow me, Miss White Fox, but that's fine. I'm just pulling up the user fees and charges bylaw. So we do bill for emergency responses to illegal burning or burning without a permit. And obviously the responses to non-residents for motor vehicle collisions. We do have some provisions in our bylaw for fire department specific response fees associated with this type of information, but we haven't really billed property owners in the past for fire specific responses related to fires in their homes.
So if we were to proceed with this program, is the intent that we would bill fire department charges for every call, regardless of whether there's insurance or a clause in the insurance, or only bill property owners who have this specific clause in their insurance?
Through the mayor to the councillor. So part of our agency agreement, part of our legal definition is that we're billing insurance companies. So if there is no insurance, then there is no bill. And we're only billing to the limits of coverage, and it's only for insured perils. And that is for property related calls. So it's not motor vehicle, unless the motor vehicle caught fire in your garage at home or on your private property and the fire service came out, then under the Save and Protect extension of your property insurance, it's a coverable incident. So our program is designed to enhance your cost recovery bylaw as it currently stands, your consolidated fee bylaw. We have clients that in their bylaw, they already have it covered off for hazmat. They already have it covered off for, we need a backhoe to knock down a building for public safety, not fire investigation, public safety. Fire investigation is not covered. So let's say the backhoe cost $1,500 and the fire department bill, we were able to recover, let's use the $5,000 as an example again. We would take $5,000 of eligible costs. We would take $1,500 off of that, and we would only take 30% of the remainder. Our program will not take any dollars away from you that you're already able to recover in your existing consolidated fee schedule. But you are not charging, from my reading of your consolidated fee bylaw, you are not charging for insured perils.
Can I give you a scenario? If the fire department is called to a home for a house fire and they show up and it's somebody burning leaves with a permit, and so then the fire department leaves, there's no insurance claim generated. I think this is kind of where Councilor Goda is going. Would then your company then go after their insurance company for costs? So there has to be an insurable claim from the property owner for it to be billed.
My
kind of where you're going with that?
understanding your question. Yeah, so we piggyback on the existing claims process. So if we reach out to the broker, if we receive the standard broker, the adjuster, we receive the standard incident report from the chief. We'll say, has a claim been made against this incident? And if the answer is yes, then we notify them that we're piggybacking on that claims process. If they say no, it was a small incident and Bill happens to be a contractor and they're going to do the repairs themselves, no claim has been made, we close the file and we return it to the fire department. The reason for that is that the industry offers what they call a no claims discount. So the longer you make no claim, the more percentage you get off of your deductible that applies, and we're not going to harm the policyholder in any way.
I think more where I was trying to understand is if we as a municipality are billing the insurance company when there's a claim, but otherwise we aren't billing. And when we are billing, we're only billing to the amount that that particular coverage allows for. Just like how that's legal, like how is it legal that we bill insurance companies, but nobody else? And we only bill whatever amount is covered and we adjust our invoice based on, like, the concept of it, just,
I just don't understand.
So the other side of that is that the industry is charging you for this coverage. And there's no, the legal mechanism for that coverage to be paid is that the municipality has to buy law to unlock that coverage. So we're not harming the policyholder because they've already paid for the coverage. We're not harming the policyholder because they're still going to get what they're entitled to. The fact that the industry is charging for this coverage and the municipal fire services are receiving, let's say prior to 2010, $0, we are now holding them account to honor the coverage for which they're charging their policyholder.
Because it's something they've purchased.
Correct.
through their
So if you like, Christmas is coming up, we go to the grocery store, we buy extra groceries to put in at the end of the till for the people who are less fortunate. How would you feel when you look through the window if they're restocking the shelves? You bought it for a specific purpose, for a specific use. So we're holding the industry to account by making them honor the coverage for which you've been charged.
So another sort of, I'm playing devil's advocate a little bit. But you said that there is zero risk of a premium increase to the policyholder. So I myself have just gone through the process of getting new home insurance. And the quotes that came in were surprisingly sophisticated in how they were able to determine like almost the exact distance from my home to the nearest water reservoir. So it is a pretty sophisticated system in how they determine their rating. So I guess my concern would be that, and I'm not trying to defend insurance companies by any means, but they're wanting to make their profit regardless. So they start catching on now that this particular municipality has adopted this policy that's going to force them to pay out these fees. Are they now not going to say, well, if we're paying this out in this municipality, when the renewal comes, we're going to increase the premiums to make sure we're still maintaining profit? Like, I just, how are you quantifying that there's no additional premiums being charged to policyholder?
Through the mayor to the councillor. So I had an insurer who caused a stir, a kerfuffle with some of their policyholders and said that the rates were going to go up. The nice thing with insurance companies is they publish their audited financial statements. So I pulled up their financial statements. This particular company, this was on the slides. I went through it quickly. I didn't show, maybe I should have highlighted it. But in this particular insurer's case, they underwrote 18.8 million in premiums that they had. They paid out 10 point something million of premiums. And they had 3 incidents of $1,000 fire department service charges that were paid out. That represented 0.028 of 1%. So they paid out 10.7 million, I think, in claims, and they were telling the policyholders that $3,000, that 0.028 of 1% is going to cause the premiums to go up. How? Well, you already charged them for it. So then I took a look at the superintendent of insurance report, and they had 26,579 policies. It worked out to 11 cents a policyholder. So now you're telling your policyholders that you're going to raise the rates because of our program? What, quarter? 15 cents? Like, no, the math says it's similar to your budget process. You forecasted what you should be paying out. The incident rates haven't gone up, and it's a static amount, not affected by inflation. So if the industry is so concerned about premiums going up, then take out the coverage and reduce the premiums that the policyholders are paying by not having it. But don't continue to charge for something that you don't want to pay out on.
I fully get that.
Yeah.
But the person shopping for insurance isn't gonna know to challenge it that way.
So I've been through that too, through the mayor to you. I changed companies in 2014. The insurance company that I was with had bought another insurance company. They were a higher risk insurer. And I'm thinking, why am I paying for all of these extra costs that we've incurred? And I switched to a different company. And I am still paying less than what I did in 2014, 9 years later, because I knew how to shop. And maybe I'm a little more savvy than the average, but there's 193 companies out there. You can get a good rate if you feel that you're being unfairly charged.
Okay, thanks. My question. It's my moment.
Perfect timing.
You don't have another
Let's think
question?
of some more questions.
Courtney, when do you expect the report to come back?
We expect it to be back either November 8th or November 22nd, so we're almost through. We've been working with Fire Marquee on the agreement side of things, just to get it to where we want it for the last month or so. So it's coming through this budget cycle for council's consideration.
Sorry about that.
And we were amenable to all the changes.
Yeah.
If a resident has an incident and then there's a charge and the insurance company, does as Councilor Goyette is indicating, tries to increase the rates, what access do residents have to you or your company to rebut those increases or get that data showing? Are you available or not available?
I'm available, especially during golf season, I'm available. I come down and play golf later in the day, but yes, I live in Collingwood. I got into this after I chose to leave municipal politics and fell into this, and I love it. It keeps my toe into the municipal world. I feel really positive about their program recovering funds for fire services, and I have no issue or qualms about sitting down at a table and having a reasonable conversation with somebody. I like that. I miss that part of governance.
So we had an incident here in Whistler that kind of brought this back to our attention, right? Where we thought we had Fire Marquee under contract and so there was a missed opportunity. Is that what developed there? How did we connect?
I don't know.
Okay,
I do
that's
know
fine.
that, I do know the one season, there was a fire in Middlesex County. And it was a goat farm. And there was only $1,000 worth of coverage. In the same season, I know that you had a fire in your municipality. It was a horse barn fire. And that horse barn fire is not part 4 agricultural, it's part 4 commercial. And I also know that 6 of those horses were individually insured. And so I know that incident was 100% recoverable of eligible costs. In that incident, where another building in another community that looked like a barn and was a barn was only $1,000 worth of coverage. So it just depends on the type of building.
Is there any way to expand this recoveries to the automobile insurance sector?
No, not so far without potential changes. The reason being is that you're an identified first party coverage in the property policy. So you under the Insurance Act of Ontario, under Section 4 statutory condition 8, you have statutory power, privilege, let's say, because it says that you can make a claim against the policy because you're entitled to a portion of the claim. There's no such language for automobile stuff. And automobile is mostly done through regulation, and it can also get tied up in the courts. So you could actually have a payment that's set aside in on a motor vehicle thing, and you just can sit in some lawyer's account or whatever until the money's are at least several years down the road, unintended. So it's a situation where the business model doesn't work yet for that. The business model works for this because the money is eligible and you're entitled to receive it.
I'd be curious to know what legislative change we need to advocate for to have that change on automobile policies. We have situations here in the township where there's commercial motor vehicle, say, accident on the 401.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's detours onto our local roads that cause damage, which is then due to that accident, which I think you could draw a direct line. If you were able to provide myself even that specific change, I would bring that up with council here for an advocacy to provincial government to have the automobile sector to mimic the home insurance. And I think there might be a palatable.
Your worship, I'll keep that in mind because there are other avenues of changes too that I think should be done, either advocated through local government or through OSM, AMO or Roma or whomever. And you take a look at the fire service calls and you analyze your budget, you'll see that there's a significant portion that are both motor vehicle and medical. And if the province is funding 50% land ambulance and the counties are funding and regions are funding 50% land ambulance, why are they not funding a portion of the medical calls that the fire service responds to? Because they're responding more quickly than the ambulance calls in most cases, or in many cases, I should qualify that language. So there are plenty of policy options that, I love policy, that I now clearly have an ally who likes policy that I will be following up.
Yeah, I don't wanna focus on, charging the resident for medical responses, but definitely infrastructure degradation due to bypass because of your accident. You cause an accident and you're insured, as far as I'm concerned, should be paying for, we have a small road and they destroy the shoulder because the highway traffic trucks are driving on it, those types of things, I think.
Right.
And
Yeah, and I'm not interested as a former elected official charging residents for anything. This is
yeah,
money that should be coming either from the province or money that should be coming in this
Right.
case from the private insurance industry.
okay, so I believe it's, you mentioned to council what the next steps would be. Okay. Go ahead.
The council received the presentation by Chris Carrier, National Accounts Manager from Fire Marquee Inc. for information, and that council directs staff to bring forward a report and associated bylaw and agreement for council's consideration at an upcoming meeting. And that council directs staff to contact the Township of Southern Wellington and the Township of Guelph Amasa to report back to council on their experience with Fire Marquee.
Okay, move for that, please. Councilor Spota, second by Councilor Hurst. Any last comments? All in favor? Carry. All right, well, thank you very much for your
Thank you for
presentation.
your
Well
time.
done.
No questions. Thank you.
All right, now we're on to consent agenda. I'm gonna try and work through till 12:30. Is that the plan? Yeah, we're on to the consent agenda.
The consent agenda listed for October 18th, 2023 council meeting be received for information.
All right, can I get a move for that, please? Councilor Spota, second by Councilor Hurst. All right, items to be removed. Councilor, Spota.
6.7 and 6.21.
Okay, Councilor Bailey,
None for me.
Councilor Hurst,
6.2, 6.3, and 6.4. All in the same page.
all right. Councilor Guida.
No, I'm good.
All right, so we can receive the remainder. Am I going to? Receive the remainder of those for information. All in favor? Okay, it was carried, just because his are ahead of yours, I'm gonna.
Sure, absolutely.
All right, Councilor, 6.2, 6.3, and 6.4.
Yeah, is in regards to the various municipalities that identify a living wage process within municipal staff, salary and benefits, and I guess my question was to township staff. Do you feel this is a worthy process to go through for Osage Township to analyze the current salary and benefit offering of staff and benchmark it to a living wage as other municipalities are doing? I think it was a question, and I think in light of maintaining a high performance staff within the township, I think that's a good consideration to make. That noted, when going through these processes, it does require staff time and effort and everything that goes along with that. And really at the end of the day, what it does is it identifies some of those roles that are probably at the lower end of the pay scale. And maybe that's not relevant in our case due to our geographical proximity and labor market. So I think it was a question to staff. Is this a valuable process to go through? If it is, we can have that conversation. If it's not, then move on.
So through Mr. Chair, I think at this point, staff would maybe want to take that away. Come back. It could be something that is looked at when we do our market equity review in 2024. If we wanted to just expand the scope of that slightly to include this sort of an analysis when we're looking at comparable staff wages and council wages to sort of take this livable income piece into account. So if council directs staff, we can take a look at that as we're preparing our RFP for that process in 2024.
So am I hearing Councillor Hirsch, you're moving that this be incorporated into the staff review of 24?
That's an excellent suggestion.
Okay, a second for that, Councillor Foyda. All right, comments?
I'm in favor.
All in favor? So that's 6.2, 3, and 4. All right, Councillor Schools.
Yeah, 6.7, this is a ERO dealing with Environment Registry Ontario expanding materials permit by road framework legislation. What caught my eye was that they asked one of the questions in the ERO, do you think that aggregate operations, including stormwater and aggregate water would be good candidate for assess EASR, Environmental Activity Sector Registry? In other words, they would be self-declaring something and away they go and it's done. So I'd like to propose a motion and that says that whereas the township of Portsmouth Council has reviewed the province of CRO 196951, blah, blah, blah. And whereas they're in the question, as I mentioned before, is poised, and whereas the township has a concern that even compliance with existing approved site plan are not being met, we resolve that the township of Portsmouth therefore cannot support using an assessed EASR for any aggregate operations. And that resolution before the Speaker Ted Ireland, Area MP Peony Ray, County Wellington, and Tatmon.
Move, seconder, please. Councillor Bailey, comments, Councillor Bailey.
Yeah, I was actually gonna ask, did we see this in a previous meeting and make any comments on it? I feel like we've.
No,
No.
it is.
So, this is a new ERO posting.
Very similar to something I've read in the past. No, I'm in support of that. I think that's, you're being on with that.
Councillor Hurst.
Well articulated. I think, the two comments I had just as builds would be, any relevance to land augmentation in addition to aggregate operations. And I'm not sure if that's specific to the easer, but I think that was one, maybe it's something that staff can clarify. I think the only other thing, and I just share this from my own kind of business experience, the easer process does have a lot of relevance specifically in like at the ag space where we're not into significant compliance issues. It does allow that particular user a much clearer way to navigate a whole plethora of regulations. So I think within our municipality, I think it has a ton of relevance for aggregate operations, but I think I want to be clear, like easers do serve a really good purpose from a regulatory standpoint as business burden, but if they're not being used in a appropriate manner or as a convenient rerouting of obligations, that's where we have concerns, I think. So I think I fully understand where Councillor Zapoulis is at on this one, but I think just maybe my comment on that is in seeing it in other industries, it does serve a purpose to reduce the massive regulatory navigation that one needs. But if it's not used for the right reason, that's a significant concern.
That's good.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with the motion.
Yeah, I'm supportive of it. I think you're focusing in on the aggregate industry versus,
Absolutely. No, that's our biggest headache is compliance, with site plans.
Yeah.
That's the question of Councillor Hurst. What do you mean by land augmentation?
You get a permit to put some soil or something on the land and you're not using, or you're taking a very wide path of interpretation is where I'm going with that. It can be abused.
Taking advantage of something.
Okay, is that okay, all in favor? Carried. I see Kyle here. Should
I can see her for his MOU report. Yeah.
we do that now before we break?
Do you want to finish the last consent item? I think we have one more.
Which one did I miss?
6.21.
Sorry. That's supposed to.
Yes, I looked at the presentation and I'd like to just have it included as part of our budget discussions. I really have a heartburn with a comment saying lost approximately 15,000 in 2023. Well, if you don't have any revenue and you don't have any expenses, how can you still lose 15,000? In other words, if they're not bringing membership, they're not incurring costs to rent a field. So I would like to see a financial statement if we go anywhere near to propose this 15,000 in our budget type of thing. I can understand perhaps relinquishing the fees in 2024 for the fact that they lost an opportunity this year. I really can't see going the extra mile of paying for the rental at Calvary Church and paying for the cost of line driving.
How is staff planning on dealing with this? Were they bringing forward a budget increase to accommodate these concerns and requests, or what was?
So through you, Mr. Chair, council or staff provided some information in the responses to council's questions around the support that the township has offered Plissonch Minor Soccer, particularly in relation to our scheduled construction at the Plissonch Community Center and offsetting some of those costs in 2023. We also have council provided budget approval to sod our new soccer field, not new, but the other soccer field that needed some work that Plissonch Minor Soccer noted to staff. So council has put in an additional $40,000 in the budget this year for that field. So unless directed otherwise by council, there's no other budget that staff at this point is looking to incorporate for council related to offsetting costs for Plissonch Minor Soccer.
I'm okay with that approach.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
I think, I think, so this delegation came to the rec committee. It was kind of a surprise for us to hear this information and to have these requests put on us, which is why it came to council for consideration. I think it's important that we recognize the value of Plissonch Minor Soccer to our community. And I think it's also important that we recognize the donations that Plissonch Minor Soccer has contributed to the township. And I think when we do eventually have our ribbon cutting ceremony at the park, that they should, they play an important part of that. And I think it was definitely not an ideal year for Plissonch Minor Soccer, given all the construction and the pivoting. That being said, though, I think that our Parks Department have really tried hard to make sure that they could continue to carry on their programming through the year. And I did speak with Mr. Fowler about that a little bit. I wonder if it's okay, Mr. Fowler, can you just kind of share with council what all took place during the soccer season to make sure Plissonch Soccer could still happen?
Thank you, Councilor Gorda, and through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, so basically, the township was always in communication with Plissonch Soccer in regards to the changes, unfortunately, for the 2023 season. Through the delegation, they did identify some of the challenges they experienced, but what was rather disappointing was no recognition of what the township tried to do or actually did to try and compensate for some of their inconveniences. It was decided that they were going to utilize Calvary Church as their main playing fields. Staff used township resources and equipment to move all the nets up to Calvary so they could function properly. There was also the extension to offer the ball diamond green space for their Timbit soccer that was initially provided. It turned out they did not use or take advantage of that green space. They chose to keep everything at Calvary, and they chose to go to other venues in other municipalities. So basically, to summarize, I feel the township was very forthcoming years in advance to identify that the intermediate soccer field would be affected by the construction. Actions were taken to also help Whistler Soccer reestablish at a new field. So in summary, I'm very confident that staff and the township provided all the necessary actions to help Whistler Soccer have a successful 2023 season. And other than the delegation at the rec committee, I was under the assumption and interpretation that all went well this season.
Just one follow-up to that, Mr. Fowler, is you mentioned that the outfield of the baseball diamond was offered for I think it was like the younger group of the soccer. And I think before that, the horse paddock was being offered at no cost for the Timbit soccer. Is that something you foresee will continue in the, like, once the park is complete?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I do foresee that Whistler Soccer may try to utilize the horse paddock again for their younger divisions. We currently do not have the horse paddock included in our fees and charges bylaw. So that is something that the township may want to consider if Whistler Soccer continues to want to use the paddock. There was discussion through the Ag Society that they would have liked to have seen the paddock reverted back to sand for the animals, and the township took the other direction on ensuring that sod will be reestablished in the paddock for not only the animals, but also for the possibility of Whistler Soccer continuing to use it.
Thank you. And then just the other component to that delegation was sort of an inquiry to the township as to what the plan is for adding more soccer fields in the future. I mean, we don't, as far as I know, we don't have any land to be able to put it, but in my mind, that just reinforces the idea of looking again at some point in the future at our parks master plan. So just a comment on that.
Okay, so no change. Same for information. Okay, moved by Councilor Spolis, seconded by Councilor Hurst. All in favor? That's carried. All right, I believe we're gonna go down to our MOU with Conservation Authority. We have Mr. Kyle Davis in attendance. Unless you wanted to wait until we were done. All right.
Thank you, Mayor Sealy. I appreciate being moved up.
Number are you? Near the bottom. 934. There it is. All right, whenever you're ready. I believe you're right. No.
Thank you, Mayor Sealy, members of council. Pleased to present this report to you for your consideration. This report is in regards to three memorandums of understanding or agreements that are required with the conservation authorities under the changes in the Conservation Authorities Act. So as you may recall, the province made significant changes to the Conservation Authorities Act over the last few years. Some of those changes are detailed in the report, but in summary, what it does is it takes the programming that the conservation authorities have been provided in the past and breaks into three categories: category 1, 2, and 3. And category 1 is our mandatory activities, and those are activities that do not require an agreement with municipalities. They are subject to a levy, and the CAs go through the pre-established process that we're all familiar with in terms of establishing the programs and then levying those activities. Category 2 and 3, however, the province has now directed the conservation authorities that these are programs that municipalities can opt in and out of if they wish. So they had to go through a process to actually identify which of those programs that they're currently offering are category 2 and or category 3. So the report in front of you is in regards to Conservation Hamilton Region Conservation Authority, and the Grand River Conservation Authority, which are the three CAs within Whistler's boundaries. There is if agreements are to be reached, they do need to be in place by January 1st, 2024, and we've been working with the CAs and staff on these agreements. Overall, staff is in support of the agreements that are put in front of you for your consideration. These are all category 2 agreements. And the report lists some of the things that these category two programs are. But in summary, what we're looking at is things related to the private land stewardship or conservation services. So it's a rural water quality program. So the actual funding of the program is county and is a separate agreement, but the actual staff to deliver the program is category two, which is why it falls now. Yes, I know. It's a bit of slicing and dicing that's happened. There's also some similarly, there's some water quality programs that some of which are category one and covered under the levy, and others in terms of surface water quality monitoring, modeling, and not applicable to township, but for some of the other municipalities, wastewater plant optimization are category two. Then there are the kind of very typical watershed science, sub-watershed services as well that are fit under category two. Some of these are portions are category one, but others are fit under category two. Overall, at the bottom of the report, we do, these are 5-year agreements, and depending on the conservation authority, some of them are memorandums of understanding, some of them are cost apportioning agreements, depending on which approach the CA decided to go. All of them are for category two. There are no category three. Category three tends to be self-funded, revenue generating services like pavers, service parks, and things of that nature. If you look at the financial implications, however, and this was completed in consultation with the CAO, the interim CAO, and the treasurer, the levies are listed out there. So you see, for instance, GRCA, the 2024 township levy is 133,792 as proposed, compared to the 2023 levy of 129,029. And the idea here is that it's this work they're already providing. So they're not really looking to increase anything here. It's just a different way of slicing the same pie, with the exception of cost of living increases. So if you break out GRCA just as an example, GRCA's, sorry, I'm just trying to find it right here. Yep, okay, I'm gonna actually use Hamilton, it's right in front of me. But sorry, I'm just looking here. Oh, there we go. So yes, no, if I use GRCA as an example, the overall levy, both category 1 and 2, is proposed to be 133,000. The category 2 allocation is $10,000. So the overall allocation, so majority of the services that the CAs are providing are actually category 1, which they can levy directly for, levy us directly for. It is only about $15,000 total between the three CAs that are category 2. Please take any questions.
Excellent, thank you, Kyle. Mr. Schultz?
I have two questions. One was related to the indemnity clause in the Halton Region agreement that has included, whereas the other two did not. Is staff comfortable with that approach?
Yes, and in discussions, I'll only defer to the interim CAO on that. I know we did reach out to the GRCA in terms of why they didn't provide the indemnification clause, and some of the rationale was that they were not directly working on township property in terms of GRCA. But maybe I would defer to them.
So through you, Mr. Chair, I believe that it was Hamilton that we have had the indemnification clause added to, and our Director of Finance might be able to clarify, but in a post sort of agreement that's in this agenda, they had added it. So at this point, the only MOU that doesn't include it is GRCA, and we have reached out to their staff. They are working with their legal team to have that included. What their explanation is at this point is their understanding is it's not required, but we are working to just have that consistency across all three MOUs. So we'll still be working with GRCA on that. And if council does choose to endorse these today, we could have the resolution stating that it's as amended to include that indemnification clause, just so that we can reinforce that.
Okay, great, thank you. And the second issue is Halton Region included in an agreement category 3, whereas the other two did not. And a question was asked, can we strike that out because it's not germane? And if we ever do approve category 3, it has to come to council, because I don't see that as something we need to approve today.
through the chair, I believe that is something like this is a negotiation between the township and the CA, so I think we could certainly take that back to Conservation Halton with that strike through and see if they'll agree to that.
You have a comment on striking out?
Yep, so through Mr. Chair, just to add, Mr. Davis, we have reached out to them just in follow-up to after the agenda went out, and there's no concern. They will strike that out, so we will have this today if it's passed by council, as amended, striking out the reference to category 3.
Great, thank you. So Bailey?
Thank you. Again, maybe just a comment on that. I don't think Conservation Halton has any parks within our municipality that users pay for. So it's probably not relevant anyway at this point. I just had a couple questions. I specifically went through the Halton one just because of my role being on there. Sorry, one question I had, it said, first of all, I really liked how the objectives were in there, focus on coordinated efforts and increasing communication. I think that is, really important for both parties to be making sure that there's, whether they're doing it naturally or not, to actually have an agreement that says, you guys need to talk. So I think that's really great that that's emphasized in there. I guess I just had a question more for staff, and it's more just for interest's sake, but under the purpose, it said this MOU is not intended to conflict with or preclude any other agreement between Conservation Halton and other municipalities, agencies, partners, or entities. And my question was just, are there any already?
So through you, Mr. Chair, I'm not aware of any, that there could be historical, but again, we're not aware of any of the 3 conservation authorities.
Yeah, just to add that through you, Mr. Chair, yeah, same for the township. They may also be referring, however, to the agreements that they're striking with the other municipalities under category 2.
Okay, because you just wouldn't want that. Yeah, that conflict happening. 5.4, it just talks about if schedules may be added to, amended, or removed from this MOU without board and township council endorsement. Is there a mechanism for notifying council of any changes through the MOU?
This is through the Halton agreement.
I have Halton agreement 5.4. So it just sounds like changes can be made. And I'm just wondering if there can be notification, at least so council's aware of changes.
Through you, Mr. Chair, there's definitely notification clauses. I would have to go and specifically look for in terms of the schedules. Yeah, I just need to.
And maybe we don't need to be notified if it's minor, but if it's, something of importance, it would just might be nice to know that that change has happened.
And through you, Mr. Chair, through our annual budgeting process, we are reporting to council on the services that are provided through the category and the various categories that the township supports. And so there is an opportunity on an annual basis to take a look at this. And if there was any changes, significant changes that were occurring, it would be the right time to bring it forward to council.
Okay, good. I'll just make note that.
Yeah, and then through you, Mr. Chair, 4.3 does speak to the parties meeting on an annual basis to talk about the associated schedules. Now that probably at a staff level, but then that would tie into this box's point about the budget process.
Great. And I think just the last part 12 in this specific Schedule D, but it's the MOU shall be accessible to the public on Conservation Halton's website. Can we also be adding it to Quislinch Township website as well?
Through the chair, the chair, that's actually a requirement of the regulation, which is why it's in all the agreements.
Okay, great. That's all I have. Thanks for all your hard work on this. A lot of work.
It was a team effort. It was well, many people.
Thanks, Councilor Hurst.
No, I think just to comment to be as consistent amongst all 3 as possible. And I think those questions got teased out. I think it's a good working relationship. My one recommendation is I thought maybe about a year ago now, we had a delegation from Halton, I believe, the Conservation Association. I thought that was very informative from my standpoint. So maybe my request would be the other two at some point. It would be very beneficial to have them walk through their overall organizational strat plan and oversight, I think would be good. And it's within the requirements here, but just some at a high level, I think I would appreciate that, but nothing beyond what's already been said.
Good. Councilor Goyda,
Yeah, I don't have any additional questions. Thank you very much for all your hard work.
you want to do the resolution?
The report ADM 2023-058 entitled Conservation Authorities Act, Memorandum of Understanding and Agreements be received. The council authorized mayor and clerk to execute the required documents to enter into the memorandum of understanding as amended to include the township indemnification clause with the Grand River Conservation Authority attached to Schedule B to this report. And the council authorized mayor and clerk to execute the required documents to enter into the agreement for services as amended to include the township indemnification clause with the Hamilton Region Conservation Authority attached to Schedule C. And the council authorized the mayor and clerk to execute the required documents to enter into the memorandum of understanding as amended, striking out the reference to Category 3 services with the Halton Region Conservation Authority attached as Schedule D.
All right, can you move that, please? Councilor Hurst, second by Councilor Schools. Everybody happy with that? Okay, all in favor? Carried. Before you go, earlier in the agenda, we dealt with environmental registry for permit by rule framework, and it mentioned specifically aggregate, discharging water. Have you looked, I mean, I don't mean to put you on the spot, it just dawned on me because you look after the wellhead protection areas. Has anybody taken a look at that for aggregate operations within the WAPAQs and commenting on that?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, we are working on staff comments actually, and to Councilor Bailey's point, there was actually three other ERO postings that were linked to that one. So that may be what you were referring to, having read previously, because there was actually 4 grouped ERO postings that the province put out. The commenting period is October 30th. So we're actually working on staff level comments right now that we would be pleased to circulate back to council if you're
wishes. I don't know, I just did that was appropriate, but
yeah,
it was on the agenda, but earlier.
Well, and that's actually why I came into the room, because I saw that you were bringing it up on the consent agenda in case there's any questions. So there is a source water component to these 4 ERO listings, one of them which is actually about stormwater. So at a staff level, we do actually have significant concerns with what the province is proposing. I do agree with Councilor Hurst that the easier framework is very useful in lots of situations. Unfortunately, they seem to be taking a bit of a blanket approach with some of their proposals, and specifically the stormwater, which is one of the other proposals. They're looking at applying it across the board, even when there are significant drinking water threats, and then excluding kind of municipal RMO ability to regulate that. So,
okay,
but yes, we can definitely we are looking at all 4.
Okay, thank you. All right,
Yeah.
enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks.
So we want to break until 1 o'clock. Thanks, Kyle. All right, welcome back, everyone. This is Whitewash resolution. I think it's in the close, please.
The council should go into closed session under section 239 of the Municipal Act for the purpose of a confidential report regarding the security of the property of the municipality or local board. This is in relation to an IT infrastructure analysis. Confidential report regarding advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. It's related to an Ontario Land Tribunal matter. Confidential report regarding advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, and that relates to an Aggregate Resources Act proposed amendment. Confidential report regarding a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. This is in relation to municipal office space needs. Confidential report regarding personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. And we have 2 items on that, 14.45 and 14.6, and they're both related to human resource matters. And item 14.7, confidential report regarding litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board in accordance with the township policy, township bylaw enforcement and complaint policy, section 3.14C, and this relates to a bylaw enforcement matter.
All right, can I get a mover for that, please? Council Bailey, second by Council Spools, all in favor? Carry. We're in gold. Okay, welcome back. Ms. Hoyfox, you have some resolutions for us, please.
The council moved into open session at 5:20 PM.
Okay, mover for that, Council Bailey, second by Council Goida, all in favor? Okay, next one.
The council receives the confidential report regarding the security of the property of the municipality or local board regarding the IT infrastructure analysis. The confidential report regarding advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. This is in relation to an Ontario Land Tribunal matter, and that council authorized the mayor and clerk to execute the minutes of settlement in relation to the Ontario Tribunal matter on behalf of the township in consultation with the township solicitor when a settlement has been reached. And that confidential report regarding advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, and that's relating to an aggregate proposed amendment. The confidential report regarding a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. That's in relation to the municipal space needs analysis. Confidential report regarding personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal board employees. We had two matters related to human resource issues. And item 14.7, which is a confidential report regarding litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board in accordance with the township file enforcement and complaint policy. And this is in relation to an enforcement matter, and that staff proceed as directed.
All right, I move for that, Council Hurst, second by Council Spoolis, all in favor? That's carried. Next one, Ms. Hoyfox.
And given that we are past 5 PM, our procedural bylaw requires us to pass a motion allowing council to proceed with the agenda in the order of business that's been presented past 5 o'clock.
All right, Council Bailey, Council Hurst, any comments? All in favor? That's carried. All right. Our next order of business is a report. Have it here. It's Finance 2023-027. Get a resolution for that, Ms. Hoyfox. Sorry, we're going too fast. Yeah.
So this is the second quarter financial report, and the staff recommendation is that report FIN 2023-027 entitled Second Quarter Financial Report for 2023 be received.
Can we move for that, please? Councilor Hurst, second by Councilor Spools. Any questions or comments?
I had all my questions answered, so I'm fine.
They included in the addition to the agenda, so they're available for viewing later. Anyone else? Okay, all in favor? That's carried. All right, next one is the report 2023-029, this performance measurement program.
That report FIN 2023-029 entitled Municipal Performance Measurement Program Report you received for information.
Okay, move for that. Councilor Goydit, Councilor Spoolis, any questions or comments on that one?
I do have one,
Councilor Goydit?
sorry. I just was wondering sorry, I have this printed out, but it's like super tiny. Under the number of building permit applications under category 1. It shows that the number of incomplete applications through the year was 34, which is like significantly higher than in the previous 2 years. And is there something that's driving applications to come in incomplete? Has something changed? Why is that number so high all of a sudden? Do we know?
Oh, is he here? Excellent. Yep, Andrew?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. I think this is just more a response to vetting the permits that are making their way through. It could be Conservation Authority, and that picked up after the fact that it came in as a permit. I'd have to comb through the data to get you an exact answer of why it's much higher than before. I didn't actually compare it to the year previous.
Okay, I guess I was just curious if it was due to the implementation of the cloud permit, like the online permitting system, if there was a component of the intake of the cloud permit that was maybe resulting applications to be accepted, but then deemed incomplete. But if you don't know the answer, I just point. That's okay.
No, but I will look into it and I can get back to you with a definitive answer.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other comments or questions at all? All in favor? That's carried. All right, next one is 9.2.3. We're gonna defer that
I
one.
have a motion to defer.
Okay, can you read that please?
That report FIN 2023-030 entitled 2024 User Fees and Charges Bylaw be received, and that council defer the report and bylaw to the November 8th, 2023 meeting for consideration.
All right, can we move for that? Councilor Hurst and Councilor Bailey, comments, questions? All in favor? Carried. All right. ADM 2023-055. Who's that one? Is that one done? No, rec committee. That's Sarah. I gotta pull it up here.
So we have our communications and committee coordinator, Laura Emery, online. I'll just move it.
Oh, Laura, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, who wants to go first? You, Justine? Okay.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the purpose of this report is to provide council with the Recreation Advisory Committee's proposed 2022-2026 goals and objectives for council's approval and endorsement. There is an amendment to the proposed goals and objectives to rename the fundraising subcommittee to be called the liaison subcommittee, and to clarify that the purpose of this subcommittee will be to liaison with the township's community partners for this, and the focus for this year will be liaising regarding the fundraising goals that have been referred to the Recreation Advisory Committee by council. This focus may change in the future as items are referred to the committee by council or as the county proposes updates to the goals and objectives. We do have Councilor Guida, who's the chair of the committee, with us, if you had anything further to add.
No, you covered that really well. We wanted to change the name of the fundraising subcommittee to more like a liaison committee, just to avoid the confusion. I think along the way, things were kind of lost in translation, and the committee, even including myself, was under the impression that we were being asked to physically go out, kind of like knocking on doors to raise funds for these projects, when I don't believe that was the intent. It was more to liaise with our local community groups to work collaboratively to find ways or opportunities of fundraising. So it was just the wording of the subcommittee was making it seem a little confusing. So that's why we're proposing this change, but otherwise, yeah, good.
The resolution?
The report ADM 2023-055 entitled 2022 to 2026 Recreation Advisory Committee Goals and Objectives be received. And that council approved the Recreation Advisory Committee Goals and Objectives as amended to revise the fundraising subcommittee to be renamed to the Community Liaison Committee.
All right, can I move that, please? Councilor Hurst, second Councilor Bailey, any further comments? All in favor?
Just a comment. Yeah, no, I'm really glad to see this amendment to it. I did talk to a committee member and there did seem to be just a bit of confusion as to what the expectation was, but I've written down that I feel like the rec committee is a big part of their job is to liaise with the community. So I think you kind of nailed it on the head that to call it that, to change the name of that and just be kind of the go-to committee for members of the public that might have ideas about what they want, and hopefully some businesses that might want to provide some funds. So anyway, good job with that. Thanks.
Any further? No? All there. That's carried. Believe ADM 2023-057 Youth Advisory Committee terms of reference. Is that one yours as well, Justine?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the purpose of this report is to seek council's approval of the proposed amendments to the Recreation Advisory Committee's terms of reference attached to Schedule A, which includes increasing the number of meetings from 4 to 8, including 2 joint meetings with the Youth Advisory Committee, and changing the date of the meetings from the 3rd Tuesday of the month to the 3rd Thursday of the month.
Okay. Your recommendation?
The report ADM 2023-056 entitled Recreation Advisory Committee Terms of Reference Amendments be received. And the council approved the following amendments to the TOR. The number of committee meetings be increased to 8 meetings per year, including 2 joint meetings with the advisory committee, and the committee meeting dates be changed from the 3rd Tuesday of the month to the 3rd Thursday of the month. And the council approved an increase of $1,640.96 to the per diems for the Recreation Advisory Committee as an ongoing base budget operating increase.
All right, can I move it for that? Councilor Swill, second by Councilor Goya. Any questions or comments? I've said this comment already today, but I'd like to see a tally of everything that we've already approved for base budget increases at the next meeting. I know this is only $1,000, but they all add up. Basically. All right, all in favor? Very, thank you. 9.3, we did that one, didn't we? Yes, memorandum of understanding, that was done.
Advisory TOR amendment.
Yeah, 934, sorry, we just passed 933, didn't we?
932.
Oh,
We're on 932.
sorry,
That's okay.
933.
Yeah.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the purpose of this report is to seek council's approval and of the proposed amendment to the Youth Advisory Committee's terms of reference attached to Schedule A, which includes 2 joint meetings with the Recreation Advisory Committee.
Boom.
Report ADM 2023-057 entitled Youth Advisory Committee Terms of Reference Amendment being received. And the council approved the amendment to the Youth Advisory Committee Terms of Reference, being that 2 of the Youth Advisory Committee meetings be joint committee meetings with the Recreation Advisory Committee.
All right, can we move for that, please? Councilor Hurst, Councilor Schools, comments? All in favor? Carried. All right, now 9.3.4, which was done, right?
Yeah.
What do we have here? 10.2? That's for information. I don't know if there's anybody here, right?
No.
The resolution for that, please.
The council received the County of Wellington Planning Committee report regarding new provincial housing fund, building faster fund for information.
All right, can we move for that? Councilor first, second, Councilor Schools, any questions or comments? No, all in favor? Comments carried. 10.3.
This was, I have just a little bit of information on this one, as it pertains to Plus Lunch, with this proposed OPA. It does propose to designate the lands across from the office for future residential development, a subdivision. So that's a change for the municipality that's included within this OPA. And it is just on the agenda to be received for information.
Okay. So can we move for that, please? Councilor Goydas, Councilor Schools, any questions or comments?
What was it changed from?
I believe that it is secondary agriculture, and so the designation will be to permit subdivision, a rural subdivision.
It had an FD layer on it. So there's other lands in
Future development.
right, and that's kind of a weird designation. It's kind of a holding, right? So the county did it there and some other municipalities in the northern part of the county where these FD lands are kind of held in reserve for when growth stipulated they can be utilized. That's why that one is residential.
Is that land included in the regionally economic significance?
Or see that.
That thing?
I don't know. I'm not
I
sure.
don't believe so. I believe it goes to the next farm.
Okay.
But that whole property, I don't believe the whole property gets the residential designation just to the creek. no?
It has, yes, it has a delineation, I think, with the natural
I
area.
think that follows the boundary of the current hamlet, which will be under review. Any other? Okay, you're gonna move in a second if that one? Okay, all in favor? It's carried. Okay, is done. Council report. Do I have anything, does anybody have any questions for me that I maybe asked you to remind me? No? Any members of council have? You do?
Well, Laura's gone. I was gonna put her on the spot and find out how our municipal recognition week in the school went today.
Oh.
Do you know how it went?
I can
Okay.
update you.
So a few of the youth committee members went into Aberfoyle School today. Maybe you can speak to it better than me, but to help promote
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. So this week is local government week, where there's a spotlight shone on local government. So the Youth Advisory Committee, along with our communication committee coordinator, attended Agro Fall Public School today to provide a presentation to the grade 5 classes, just on our local government, specifically the lunch. So looking at our various departments, looking at council and the role that we play. Yeah. That was pretty cool.
Next time include me in the, when that's gonna be happening next year, and I'll make an attempt to show up. So if they can
Absolutely.
grill me. Yeah, but honestly, I would show up as long as the schedule works. I think it's always fun to engage the. I believe your daughter gave me some difficult questions the last time I was at public school. You know, and I'm thinking about it.
Yes.
Have you ever been put Sarah on the hot seat for?
No, I don't know. Just to get back at her.
Yes. All right, well, that's excellent. So where are we?
We can receive that for information, just like that's maybe.
All right, Council Spillis, move to Council Bailey. All in favor of receiving that information, boom. We have bylaws,
We have none.
none bylaws.
Yeah.
Any announcements? Closed session's done. Business arising from the closed session, no. Notice of motion? No? Done with that? New business? I suppose.
No, the issue of provision of internet services in the township of Portsmouth. We've been, dealing, the committee, this is the Portsmouth High Speed Initiative Committee. Has been dealing through, the chair and I've been dealing with Courtney to try to get information from Rogers. There's a lack of trying to get information. One thing that we're interested in is having, a schedule update, a completion date, and a map of what they're going to provide service to. That isn't very important because we had identified previously areas that we believe were not going to be served by Rogers or Standard Broadband. And moreover, we're concerned with Standard Broadband that they're being late in delivering what they said. They said certain dates on the website, and they're not meeting those dates. And the concern is that we're going to be missing having some areas covered by Rogers, and Standard Broadband doesn't perform this, and might have a problem with Standard Broadband. So I was wondering if we can get some sort of a letter to the funding partners, the province and the feds, to alert them to this concern we have.
Yeah, I'd be supportive of that. So how do we manage this under the new business portfolio in the site box? Are we fine to take that direction and send a letter to our federal representative MP, Michael Chong, and our MPP, Good House, Arnett, and MPP Ray? And so is that appropriate we're doing here? Should we bring that back under the next one? I mean, we could wait 3 weeks, but.
So through you, Mr. Chair, typically, we'd be looking for something under, if it was under new business or notice of motion, we'd be wanting a staff report to come back for council decision. There is the ability to just move a motion under new business, but it may be that to give staff sort of the chance to report back on it might be preferred.
Well, we do that, get a report back.
Sure, I'm fine with that, yeah, and certainly the chair and I can meet with Courtney and just articulate our concerns in a little bit more detail.
Yeah, that works. And you don't need a resolution for that, that's just something.
It would be good to have a resolution just with council directing us to report back and to spend that staff time on this, yeah.
Okay, I'm with the council report back on the issue of lack of communication with Rogers and the issue of identification of areas that may be not served by between the current two providers, Rogers and Standard Broadband.
That makes sense. Second by Councilor Hurst. Any questions? All in favor? That's carried. Territory bylaw.
That the following bylaw be taken as read 3 times and finally passed in open council. Bylaw 2023-043 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council for the corporation of the township of Portsmouth at its meeting held on the 18th day of October 2023.
And move for that. Councilor Bryan, Councilor Spillis, all in favor? And adjournment.
Council hereby adjourns at 5:39 PM.
Mover, please. Council Bailey, Council Hurst, all in favor? Yay. Thank you, everyone.